Chapter 1997. The night passed quickly. When the sky was slightly bright, a black-robed nun from the Black Order pushed open the door of the hotel suite. After the Black Order encountered the great catastrophe and almost disintegrated, the new chief of the order, Lamias, took a tough stance and quickly integrated the remaining forces of the order. "Lady Lamias, it's almost time. Shall we set off?" Lamias was sitting cross-legged on the bed at this time, like an old monk in meditation. She did not respond to the person who came. The black-robed nun had to bite the bullet and walked closer. At this time, Lamias suddenly opened her eyes. When the black-robed nun met Lamias's gaze, she was startled and suddenly took 2 steps back. In her feeling, the new chief in front of her seemed to shoot out a terrifying lightning bolt. The black-robed nun exclaimed subconsciously, "Lady Lamias, you can break the seal of the Forbidden Land?" "No one can break it," Lamias said indifferently. "You retreating is just your illusion. Some people, even if they don't have extraordinary power, are born to be feared, that's all." The black-robed nun immediately bowed her head and said, "Lady Lamias, you are the one who can be feared." "Me?" Lamias chuckled and immediately said indifferently, "I just lived long enough, and the time to pretend to be a god is long enough. If it were you, being worshipped by a group of vicious people every day, you can do it after a long time." The black-robed nun thought that the new chief was talking about the people of the Black Order. She thought that the new chief had only been in office for a short time. "By the way, what I asked you to do, how is it?" Lamias suddenly asked. The black-robed nun quickly said, "In the past 2 days, according to your instructions, we have tried to contact the Prince of Undersea City many times and finally found an opportunity to convey your wish to meet. The other party's answer was that if there is a chance at the scene of the power conference, you can meet." "Got it." Lamias nodded and immediately stood up. When the black-robed nun saw this, she quickly stepped forward and pulled up a nightgown from the chair beside her, putting it on for Lamias. That's right, the chief of the Black Order had been meditating naked all night. "Let's get ready to go." Lamias pulled back the hair that was hidden behind her clothes and spread it out. In another hotel suite, Mr. Buggy had been squatting in the washroom for a long time. He had smoked a whole pack of cigarettes, but he still hadn't finished. Participate in the power conference? He would be beaten to death, right? Yesterday, he pointed at Father Stella's nose and scolded him. Although the Magician Association's Scarlet Blaze Tower master stepped forward to support him, he was definitely hated by Father Stella. He knew himself very well. He couldn't do anything, but he had to trick the first place. Although he was strong now and wouldn't care if he ked 3 or 4 dancers until they cried, he would still be easily beaten to tears by people with supernatural powers. Let's not talk about the distant ones, let's talk about the near ones. The long-haired beauty beside Lucifer, Skaha, who didn't smile much. Previously, because he coveted her beauty, he almost had all the bones in his body broken. Even the artifact PAD couldn't help him. Originally, this artifact PAD didn't have any attack power. It was completely an auxiliary item. Although it could be taken out like a treasure bag with no upper limit, it was still very expensive. As for the weapons and services that could insta-kill people, he would probably have to wait until he reached New Moon 3 before he could unlock them. New Moon was a way to calculate the level of the PAD. The more he spent, the higher the level, the more items he could unlock, and the more comprehensive the functions would be. By the way, after Buggy had been squandering for a long time, his level on the artifact pad was already the noble a New Moon 1. Buggy roughly calculated that if he wanted to buy the service of making Skaha cry at night, he would have to develop hundreds of millions of believers and crazily harvest faith units for hundreds of years. Who was he kidding? With hundreds of millions of believers crazily harvesting faith units for him for hundreds of years, what could he not do? Every day there would be a stunning beauty. After playing with one, he would eat it. Wasn't it delicious? That's right. Buggy didn't know when he even had the urge to eat human flesh. Although the mysterious meat that he had exchanged on the artifact pad had always been to his liking, it seemed that it gradually couldn't satisfy his desire for meat. Buggy was suddenly awakened by this terrible thought. He shuddered suddenly, and then smacked the butt of the last cigarette and threw it directly into the toilet. After washing his face, Buggy listened to the movement outside. There was no movement. Then, he opened the lid of the toilet tank and fished out the artifact pad wrapped in plastic wrap from inside. Hiding things in the toilet tank was a traditional ability that Buggy learned when he was in the underworld. He had not forgotten it until now. Even if this thing was on him, he would feel unsafe, as long as Lucifer was always by his side. With Lucifer's temperament, he would not find something in the toilet tank. Could she afford to lose face? Buggy, are you willing to come out? Am I, Lucifer, the kind of person who covets things hidden in the water tank? Hurry up, we have to go out. You have to perform well today. F***ck. Then, Miss Pienchen, this old man will set off. In front of the pet hospital, Chichi Kamaya kindly stared at the chest of the little butterfly monster and said, "Don't get me wrong, this is just because the old dirty turtle's height could only reach this position. This old man was physically disabled, but his will was strong." "Wait a minute, everyone!" the little butterfly monster shouted, and then quickly rushed into the hospital. "What is she going to do?" Chichi Kamaya couldn't help showing a puzzled expression at this time, looking at Ghost Baby beside him. Ghost Baby shrugged at this time, then looked at the masked woman beside him, Jessica, who pretended to be Princess Xianyuan. Jessica could only shake her head at this time to show that she didn't know. After a while, Luo Dance came out with 2 big bags. "The competition will be very hard. I have to look after the house, so I can't come to the scene to cheer for you." The little butterfly monster opened her watery eyes at this time, smiling and saying, "So I made some bento boxes for you. Today you have to do your best." Chichi Kamaya was stunned, subconsciously looking at the 2 bags full of carrying poles. After a while, he said, "Ha ha, this old man feels like being cured. Ghost Baby, is it Monday today? I always feel that the vitality is very abundant today." "Today is Wednesday," Ghost Baby said expressionlessly. "Wednesday is also a full day," Chichi Kamaya said seriously. Ghost Baby rolled his eyes, immediately taking the 2 bags of bento boxes from Luo Dance's hands. He took it in his hands, and after a moment of silence, suddenly said, "Thanks. Hey, Mr. Ghost Baby, you also have to do your best." Ghost Baby didn't answer, just took the 2 bags and left directly, as if he didn't want to wait for Chichi Kamaya. The old dirty turtle sighed again and again, saying that it was not easy to live in this world and didn't know how to be humble and respectful to the old. He also said that he was old and his waist was weak, and hoped that Jessica could help him, and so on. They walked away. Seeing that there was nothing to do, the little butterfly monster was about to go back when she suddenly saw the 2 temporary guests in the pet hospital, Black Dragon Ajuan and the fat girl Leia. They were supposed to be driven away on the 2nd day, but on the 2nd day, Shinryu of Kelowna went to be Xiaoxi and probably forgot about it. At this time, Ajuan looked at them pitifully. "Mr. Ajuan, what's wrong with you?" Ajuan was so pitiful that he almost squeezed out tears. "Miss Dance, you got up early in the morning to prepare the food, is it for them?" "Yes, of course." Luo Dance nodded and then smiled. "Don't worry. I also made breakfast for you." "But," Ajuan still said pitifully, "I also want the bento box you made by yourself. We eat the same thing for breakfast." "I want a bento box." "Well?" The little butterfly monster thought for a while and said, "Then I will put it in the bento box for you, okay?" "I feel that the meaning has changed." Ajuan frowned and then clenched his fist. "I've decided, I'll also attend the power conference." Leia. "Mr. Ajuan, you're also going to attend the competition?" The little butterfly monster was surprised. The black dragon hummed, "Why? Why can't I attend it? Didn't anyone tell you that I'm the current leader of the Black Dragon clan in the Inhuman realm? Mr. Audiobook, you're so awesome. The little butterfly monster showed a surprised expression. She was a demon from the divine land. In the world of demons, the leader of the demons was a respected existence. He was the head of the clan. No. Only Audiobook is left in the Black Dragon clan. Leia was about to say something, but Audiobook had already covered her mouth, and then spread out his hands. Bento box. Bento box. Bento box. Then, please wait for a while. The little butterfly monster turned back with a smile. Seeing the little butterfly go in, Leia broke free from Audiobook's hand and said anxiously, You really want to attend it? She spoke more fluently now, because Audiobook was her only family member who grew up with her. Are you stupid? Audiobook shrugged and said, We'll find a place outside to finish our bento box, walk around for a while and come back. What if we run into that old lunatic feral in the city of abstinence? It's not easy to get rid of him. But don't forget, this competition is broadcasted live worldwide. Leia shook her head slightly. If you don't appear in the competition, Miss Agile will be suspicious. She seems to be the type who doesn't like people lying. Black Dragon Audiobook panicked. Then, I'm really going to attend the competition? He knew himself well. It was true that he was the leader of the Black Dragon clan, but he was the only one left in the entire Black Dragon clan. How could he say that? Do as you deem fit. Leia shook her head. The little butterfly monster walked out with 2 new lunchboxes. Mr. Audiobook, these are the lunchboxes you wanted. Today we have to do our best. Of course. Audiobook patted his chest and said, Miss Pienxian, just wait and see my heroic figure on TV. Leia couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This black dragon in heat, he's about to become a love-struck fool, and it's the kind of unrequited love. After all, he was a hero who participated in the Great War 100 years ago. Why couldn't he be more mature? Look at Kelowna's Shinryu. How majestic was he when he chased them away? Even though it was the city of abstinence, he was still filled with a terrifying majesty. This was the model of a dragon, right? Although there was a huge difference in the concept of dragon between the East and the West. Kelowna's Shinryu was famous, wasn't it? Then we'll set off, Audiobook said solemnly. Okay. The little butterfly monster made a cheering gesture with her small fist. When I see Mr. Audiobook and Miss Leia on TV, I'll cheer for you. All the best. Okay. After Chichikamaya left, Audiobook and Leia also left. Sister Long. Well, she should still be sleeping in the boss's room. Sister Long always had the habit of sleeping in. But the pet hospital became deserted all of a sudden. The whole city seemed to be very tense recently. The old men and women of the monster clan rarely went out. Luo Dance heaved a sigh of relief slowly, and suddenly became spirited. Let's clean the backyard. The moment she entered the door, the little butterfly monster heard some noise. It seemed to come from the cold storage of the hospital. She walked into the cold storage with a trace of curiosity, but found the door was opened. Luo Dance was a little nervous at once. She hurriedly grabbed the broom to protect herself, and carefully walked into the cold storage, turning on the light inside instantly. She saw a black shadow hiding in the corner. The moment the light was turned on, Luo Dance saw a pale face with a mouth full of blood. The little butterfly monster suddenly took a breath of cold air, and then suddenly quivered. Sister Zijuan? You came to steal blood for blood transfusion to drink again. Wow, Sister Zijuan, you're back. You said the opposite. The black shadow with a mouth full of blood, the real princess of the Xianyuan royal family, at this time, casually wiped the blood on her lips and smilingly walked to Luo Dance. You should say you're back first, and then ask me why I came to drink blood. Well, what have you been doing recently? Why don't you look fat at all? Saying this, Su Zijuan directly pinched the little butterfly monster's chin, shook her head, and looked at the left and right sides of her neck directly. Sister Long said I've become fat every day. Luo Dance said pitifully at this time. Su Zijuan shrugged and said casually, grow a little bit and the taste will be better. By the way, what kind of monster's blood are you collecting in the blood bag? Why do I feel it strange? Sister Zijuan, the blood in the box you just checked seems to be expired. Su Zijuan suddenly startled, and immediately opened her mouth to bite the little butterfly monster's neck. It was super fierce, but this was the Forbidden City. How could her fangs grow out? She couldn't bite it, but could only suck it. Oh! Sister Zijuan, stop it, it's itchy. Chapter 1998. It was impossible to have a bite mark, but there was indeed a big strawberry on her neck. She could only cover part of it with her collar. The little butterfly monster was tidying herself up in front of a small mirror. Beside her, Su Zijuan was holding a glass of red liquid, drinking it with a large straw. She spread her feet and flipped up her skirt to blow the fan. The princess of Xianyuan royal family actually wanted to turn on the air conditioner, but the little butterfly monster said it was more environmentally friendly and economical. Sister Zijuan, if you had come back earlier, you would have met Grandpa Gui and the others. I know, I did it on purpose. Su Zijuan responded lazily. On purpose? Luo Dance looked at her. Sister Zijuan, your skirt is too high, I can see inside. Su Zijuan showed her small canine teeth, squinting her eyes and smiling. Why, are you interested in this? I didn't see it before. How could Luo Dance be the opponent of this lowly princess? She pretended not to hear it, asking directly, Sister Zijuan, why did you avoid Grandpa Turtle? I don't want Chi-Chi Kamaya to know that I'm back, so I don't want to see him. Su Zijuan shrugged. Anyway, Xianyuan Palace can run normally when I'm not here. Maybe they will have more fun when I'm not here. Grandpa Turtle will be sad if you say so. Su Zijuan suddenly waved her hand. Go and make a cup of tea. Sister Zijuan, I thought you don't drink tea? The little butterfly monster couldn't help but ask doubtfully. It's not for me, but for the guest. Su Zijuan squinted her eyes and smiled. For a guy you will like to see. I like to see. Luo Dance was stunned subconsciously. Then she seemed to notice something and slowly turned around. Her eyes suddenly opened wide. Boss! Good morning, Miss Dance. Boss Luo greeted her with a smile. Boss, have some tea. After handing over a cup of hot tea, Little Butterfly from the pet hospital held the tray and stood next to him happily. Boss, why did you suddenly come? Miss Zijuan asked me to come. Boss Luo smiled faintly. I don't think I'm disturbing you. I won't disturb you. Boss, I won't disturb you whenever you like. She quickly waved her hand and quickly said, Boss, I made a lot of bento. Oh, a lot of breakfast, do you want to eat some too? I might not be as good as Sister Yuye's cooking skills, but I'm still trying my best. So it's like this. Boss Luo smiled and said, since it's a lunchbox, if Miss Dance doesn't mind, I'll take one with me when I leave. Of course not. Little Butterfly smiled happily. Then I'll prepare it for you right away. Then, the little butterfly monster walked out of the living room quickly. But just as she left, she turned back and came to Boss Luo, saying quickly, Oh, right. Boss, the happiest thing for me today is that Sister Zijuan came back and I saw you at the same time. After that, she hurriedly ran out. Su Zijuan clicked her tongue in wonder. This girl must have taken the wrong medicine. What does her happiness have to do with you? Boss Luo said casually, maybe Miss Dance likes to share happy things with others. Don't you think that Miss Zijuan's smile can make people happier in the morning? I don't know whether I'm happy or not, but I know you'll be happy soon. Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes. Because I'll give you a big deal soon. Boss Luo smiled faintly. I don't know what kind of business it is. Su Zijuan suddenly pressed her hands on the table and leaned forward. Her face was close to Boss Luo's and she said slyly, Are you interested in having a vigorous love affair with an old leftover woman who doesn't wash her hair for a week and hasn't been in a relationship for thousands of years? Boss Luo didn't respond immediately, nor was he moved by Su Zijuan's approach. He said calmly, "Miss Zijuan, aren't you afraid that the final result will hurt this woman?" Su Zijuan's eyes were bright. "Even if it's fake, as long as it can be deceived until the end, it will be real. A lie is not a lie as long as it's not discovered. Why, are you afraid that I can't afford this price? Don't cheat me. I know what she looks like now. It's not difficult to get her. Hasn't your shop always set the price according to the difficulty of realizing it? Of course, the cost of maintaining this lie may be high in the future, but I won't always be in a situation where I can't make ends meet. Since transcendents have appeared, I think I can make money everywhere." Boss Luo was silent for a moment and said faintly, "I'm sorry, Miss Zijuan, your business came too late. If it came earlier, I might not have been able to reject it." "What do you mean?" Su Zijuan frowned. "You want to reject me? Didn't you say that no matter what it is, as long as you can pay the price, anyone can fulfill it at any time?" "Basically, that's right," Boss Luo said faintly, "but I've adjusted this rule recently. I'll also see how I feel." Hearing this, Su Zijuan didn't insist on the purpose of the shop. She just looked at Boss Luo strangely and said hesitantly, "You don't tell me you don't want to hurt. Does Miss Zijuan want to hurt?" Boss Luo asked calmly. "Of course." Su Zijuan snorted and said, "I love to see this old witch suffer. If I can see her live in a beautiful lie for the rest of her life and smile like a fool, only to let her know in the end that everything is fake, tsk. I can wake up laughing in my dreams. I have the money and the ability to do such an interesting thing. Why wouldn't I do it? It seems that Miss Zijuan is the one who loves Miss Long the most in the world." Boss Luo suddenly said softly, "In my opinion, Miss Zijuan is also very attractive." Su Zijuan was stunned and looked around in panic. She sat back down and coughed twice. She pulled down her skirt and crossed her legs. Then she snorted and said, "Don't give me that. I'm not a dragon, idiot. That won't work on me." Boss Luo didn't say anything. After a while, Su Zijuan sighed slowly and said irritably, "Fine. Although I'm the buyer, I have a request from you. If you don't agree, I can't do anything. It's that old leftover woman's birthday in a few days. I want you to give her an unforgettable birthday. Is that okay?" "Birthday?" Boss Luo was slightly stunned. Su Zijuan said unhappily, "Why, can't she use her birthday? Do you really think she's Kelowna's tool and needs everything?" "That's not what I meant." Boss Luo was silent for a while and then nodded slowly. "Then, we'll do as Miss Zijuan says. We'll prepare for Miss Long's birthday." "How much? Say it." Su Zijuan waved her hand. Boss Luo shook his head and said, "No need. Just treat it as a gift for Miss Zijuan's real business. This time, Miss Zijuan asked me to come here for her real purpose." Su Zijuan's eyes narrowed and then she smiled. "Do you know that people like you who know everything don't want to be friends with you?" Boss Luo didn't say anything this time. Friends had always been an extremely rare luxury for him. Perhaps it was very difficult for him to have one. Su Zijuan shook her head and then said seriously, "Profiteer, listen, I hope that you or all of you can participate in this power conference. I want you to break the legend of Kelowna Shinryu's invincible." Boss Luo was stunned at first, then his eyes gradually softened, but he didn't say anything. "Why? You're rejecting this?" Su Zijuan frowned as if she couldn't make up her mind. Boss Luo said, "Regarding this matter, Miss Zijuan, don't you think it's already unnecessary? Before this, I've already shackled all extraordinary powers in the world once. This doesn't count." Su Zijuan shook her head and said, "Sealing is your own business. You can do it through some special means, but to the world, this might be an unsolved mystery. After the fear calms down, everyone will have the mentality of being lucky. No one has seen Kelowna Shinryu fight, so they will have the illusion. Only when this illusion is completely shattered, the invincible legend will end, and the Shinryu era will also end. TSK, this old woman has always claimed that she's Kelowna Shinryu. She's so disgusting. I want to see this old woman being defeated with my own eyes, so pale and powerless as she kneels and cries, so exciting. I can wake up laughing even in my dreams. What are you looking at? Is there something on my face? Boss Luo said softly. Miss Zijuan is indeed the person who loves Miss Long the most in the world. One sentence. Su Zijuan stood up fiercely. Are you going to do this business or not? If you don't do it, I'll find someone else. F***CK. I can't find anyone else. Are you going to do it or not? Boss Luo smiled but didn't say anything. Boss, are you leaving? So soon? Little Butterfly Monster came back with a 3-layer lunchbox, which was wrapped in a beautiful floral cloth and tied with a bow. This lunchbox looks luxurious. Boss Luo smiled. I don't think I can eat so much. Luo Pianran said, No, I made a little too much. I want to get some and share it with Miss Yi. I hope she won't dislike my cooking. She won't. Boss Luo smiled, receiving the luxurious lunchbox with both hands, and then said goodbye. Then I won't disturb you, I have something else to do. Oh. Okay. Take care, boss. Boss Luo walked in the usual way, and disappeared directly. Little Butterfly Monster was not surprised because she had seen it many times. She walked directly into the living room, only to see Su Zijuan opening her legs and looking at the ceiling blankly, as if her body was hollowed out. Sister Zijuan? Su Zijuan lowered her head at this moment, saying feebly, Every time I stay with this profiteer, I feel so tired. But Sister Zijuan, you seem to be more tired than I am right now. Luo Dance blinked her eyes. What happened just now? After leaving the pet hospital, Audubon and Leia stopped at a nearby park. Audubon ran into the pavilion in the park hurriedly, putting the lunchbox on the stone table with a chessboard in the center of the pavilion, as if it was a treasure, and put his hands together to worship. This is the lunchbox specially prepared for me by Miss Pianxian. Audubon took a deep breath, putting his hands on the lid of the lunchbox solemnly. God's gift. I'm going to eat. Leia looked at it without saying anything. Finally, the lid of the lunchbox was opened. Audubon took a deep breath with tears in his eyes. There are 3 sausages. I saw that Miss Pianxian only prepared 2 for Old Tortoise. I'm really special. He ate with tears in his eyes. Leia still looked at it without saying anything. She glanced at her lunchbox. Other than the 4 sausages, there were 2 more braised eggs than the others. What did this mean? She shook her head and closed the lid silently. Leia, don't you want to eat? It's delicious. Audubon spurted the rice in his mouth. I'm not hungry now. Leia shook her head, revealing a contemplative look. Audubon, what should we do later? Are we really going to attend the power conference? Aren't you afraid of meeting Sir Farrell? Let's go. Audubon was full of fighting spirit. Miss Pianxian said she would cheer for me on TV. If she doesn't see me, she will be very disappointed. I can't let her down. As for old Madman, I don't care so much. There are so many masters in the power conference. Maybe he will forget about us after he likes someone else, or maybe he will be defeated by someone else. The world is so big, how will you know how many masters are hiding if you don't go and take a look? All right. Leia sighed. I'll cheer for you. She had no intention of going on stage. With her character, she couldn't even speak clearly in a crowded place, let alone go on stage with a sword. Leia, are you really not hungry? Do you want some? Not for you. Song Dynasty Hotel. Song Howren had just taken a shower. At this moment, he walked out while wiping his hair with a towel. The servants in the room hurriedly went up to dress him. A man in a black suit said, Young master, it's almost time to prepare to set off. Those masters from the Taoist Association should have their breakfast by now. Then let's prepare the car and set off. Song Howren nodded. But at this moment, A bell suddenly rang in the room. This bell came from the button in Princess Chuyang's room. Every time Princess Chuyang pressed the button, it was as if she was being summoned. Looks like the princess woke up quite early today as well, Song Howren chuckled, then instructed, "Go and prepare. I'll be right down." Not long after, Song Howren came to Princess Chuyang's room alone. "Princess, you summoned me so early. Are you planning to have a romantic breakfast with me?" Song Howren said with a smile. "I'll go to the conference later as well." Princess Chuyang said calmly, "I also want to see how strong the masters in the era 2000 years later can be." "Princess, are you really planning to take action?" Song Howren suddenly asked. During the extraordinary summit conference, the 100 Tribulations Taoist had asked about it in a roundabout way. Song Howren remembered it and mentioned it casually to the princess when he came back. Actually, he wanted to tell Chuyang that the masters from the Taoist Association knew about her existence. Although she didn't plan to hide it, it seemed like the 100 Tribulations Taoist was planning to make it clear. Princess Chuyang said calmly, "I'll use the martial arts of the Great Qin Empire. If my father is still alive, he'll recognize me. That's all, I'm going to change my clothes." "I'll help you?" Scram. Chapter 1999. Everyone, I'm now at the venue of the Power Conference. I'm very nervous. As you can see, the representatives of the major transcendent groups haven't entered the venue, but our God of Heaven mountain has been built. It only took 1 day and 1 night. What is a big country building? This is a big country building. I'm now at the God of Heaven mountain. I can directly see the area of the God of Heaven mountain. Let the camera zoom out a little further for everyone to see. The media also changed their route today and came to the huge God of Heaven mountain outside the city of Abstinence, 15 kilometers away from the border of Abstinence. It was said that this place was completely unaffected by the city of Abstinence. In the center of the God of Heaven mountain venue, there was a square stage that was 100 meters by 100 meters. The stone slabs used for the stage were directly cut from the mountain of mud and stone outside the city of Abstinence. In addition, around the stage, 8 huge grandstands were built according to the arrangement of the 8 trigrams. Between the 2 grandstands, there was a huge stone pillar with a coiling dragon. I feel that if this place is turned into a scenic spot after the Power Conference, it will be very popular. Auntie Ren, who had also arrived early, looked around at the surrounding environment. She didn't take the initiative to find a suitable shooting location. This place was too big. The cameras could be placed anywhere, and it was a good location. However, the people from the administration still insisted that the media should stay in a fixed area and not run around. From the moment they arrived at the Power Conference, on the God of Heaven mountain, Ren Xiling had a strange feeling. Those guys who seemed to be no different from ordinary people at the summit meeting venue, and at most, they had bad personalities. When she saw them again today, their gazes seemed to be able to make people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. She even saw a giant python. A savage guy with tattoos all over his body was sitting cross-legged on the head of this giant python. Auntie Rin swore that this giant python was really the biggest python she had ever seen in her life. Other pythons that flew directly didn't have a strong visual impact. "Boss, what are we going to do for the live broadcast later?" This was the first time old Q had seen such a scene. He felt his scalp go numb. "Don't you usually have to commentate for these types of fights?" Auntie Rin said angrily. "Commentary? Will you do it?" How to explain? Take a look. The first party is using up, down, left, right, front, back, and back Alibaba Qigong. His opponent was also using Qigong. They had a match. That's right, they were facing each other. No one could win against the Sun family. Is that so? Or maybe Party B flashed behind Party A, and then punched him. Like this? "Boss, your D*CK is a thorny ape." Old Q could only squeeze out this sentence after holding it in for a long time. Madame Rin didn't reply this time. Rather bored, she picked up her binoculars and sized up the transcendent teams that were gradually arriving. In the power conference, the media from all over the world probably didn't have much to do other than raising their cameras as tools. This wasn't a quadrennial international sports competition where they could interview the contestants who had just left the arena. At this time, Madame Rin suddenly exclaimed. She put down the binoculars and frowned. She immediately raised the binoculars again and muttered, "Did I see wrongly?" "Sister Rin, what did you see?" Lizzie asked curiously at this time. Ren Xiling thought for a while and said, "I just saw a woman who looked like Xiao Shi." "Xiao Shi?" Lizzie was startled. "She shouldn't be here, right?" Madame Ren shook her head. "It's definitely not Xiao Shi. It's just very similar. This woman looks much older and has a cigarette in her mouth. How could it be Xiao Shi? Strange, why did she disappear all of a sudden? Could it be that I saw wrongly?" Old Q said subconsciously. Madame Rin thought for a while and picked up the phone directly. A few seconds later, "Hello, Xiao Shi? Are you awake? You just woke up." "Nothing, I just want to ask you if you're used to living here." "What's the sound over there? Why is it so noisy?" "Oh, I'm watching TV." "Well, nothing, I just want to call you and ask you." "Okay, I have to go." Then, Madame Rin continued to pick up the binoculars and looked around. One of the stands of the 8 trigrams stand, the Qian stand. Behind the stairwell of the auditorium, a sneaky figure was sticking to the side of the exit wall at this time. He seemed to have just put down his phone. So close. How could I be seen? The guy with a cigarette in his mouth subconsciously touched his cheek at this time and muttered, "What should I do to block it?" "Consultant Long. You're here. Consultant Hui Yun has been looking for you everywhere." Several agents of the administration walked down the stairs quickly at this time. One of the agents saw that the Kelowna Shinryu still had a cigarette in his mouth. He subconsciously took out a lighter, lit a flame, and sent it to the Kelowna Shinryu. "What are you doing?" The Kelowna Shinryu squinted at him. Lighting a fire for you?" The agent said nervously. "Did you see me smoking with your eyes?" The Kelowna Shinryu rolled his eyes at this time. "Are you blind? This is cigarette candy. I don't smoke. King stole a pack of Chinese seeds from me that night. I'm blind." The agent awkwardly left the meeting. Long Shiruo frowned at this time and said, "Old man, why are you looking for me? Didn't I already say that I'm at most here to watch? I'm not going to play." "This," the agent suddenly said with a bitter face, "Lord Long, we're just following orders. Please don't make it difficult for us. If you don't go, Consultant Hui Yun will come to you personally." "Then let him come to me. Why should I go to him? Who does he think he is?" The Kelowna Shinryu suddenly snorted. "What the F***ck, Consultant Long, is this script wrong?" Everyone's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and then they reached a consensus. Consultant Long was in an unusually bad mood today, as if she had eaten a few tons of gunpowder. They had to be careful, or else they might be sent to wash toilets for 3 years. The Kelowna Shinryu was indeed in a very bad mood today. Since she woke up in the morning, she had become inexplicably bad, depressed. She hadn't done that thing for more than 2,000 years, so it was definitely not the case. But this feeling of uneasiness was getting stronger, as if someone was plotting against her behind her back, and she couldn't get rid of it. Now she was completely displeased with whoever she saw, and she couldn't control herself. "Lord Long, so you're here. I've been looking for you for a long time." At this time, a hearty voice came. Of course, it was Hui Yun who had heard the news and came over. "What are you looking for? You still want me to see you? Who do you think you are?" Hui Yun, evil god, who had made a handsome entrance, almost missed the stairs. Fortunately, this was no longer the Forbidden City, and he had perfect control of his body, so he walked down safely. Hui Yun, evil god, immediately smiled. "Maybe the people below didn't make it clear. I'll definitely punish them later, punish them severely." "Punish my ass. What else can you do besides deducting your salary? Huiyun evil god couldn't take it anymore, thinking to himself, did this guy take the wrong medicine today? Why is he in full contrarian mode? Consultant Huiyun, Consultant Long seems to be in a bad mood today. An agent whispered carefully in Huiyun evil god's ear, it's hard to deal with. You're the one who's in a bad mood. Who are you, tomorrow? No, report to the 18th Bureau this afternoon. Consultant Long, The agent's face suddenly turned pale. Huiyun evil god suddenly waved his hand and said indifferently, okay, there's nothing for you to do here, you can go back to your posts first. Everyone fled. Huiyun evil god smiled bitterly and said, Lord Long, may I ask if the Bureau has offended you in any way? Cut the crap, spit it out. Long Shirua leaned against the wall and pinched her eyebrows. Anyone could tell that she had something on her mind at first glance. I feel like I've been plotted against. Who's plotting against me? She had an intuition that something had happened to someone close to her. This was the spiritual sense given to her by the land of Kelowna as a Shinryu. Most of the time, it was very accurate, especially when it was related to her, the more intense her intuition was. Huiyun evil god pondered for a moment, then said slowly, Consultant Long, Yen Xiaoxi was attacked on the way back, and now he's gone missing with Dr. Zhao from the R&D department. From the wreckage of the plane we found at the scene of the accident, it seems that there was a fierce fight. Your precious disciple is missing? Kelowna's Shinryu frowned. Do you know who did it? The biggest suspect is probably the remnants of Gongsun Shiyu's gang. Huiyun evil god thought for a moment and said, that day Gongsun Shiyu and the acting White Tiger clan leader were escorted separately for safety reasons, but in the end, the plane carrying Gongsun Shiyu was still destroyed. It's probably the Michael Club, Gongsun Shiyu, he. Long Shirua said subconsciously, but she stopped abruptly. Huiyun evil god frowned and said, Gongsun Shiyu, he. What about him? Is he related to this mysterious club? Kelowna's Shinryu shook his head. I only know that they have some connections, but I'm not sure what exactly. But the Michael Club suffered a major attack a few days ago, and their base was destroyed, and now the remaining guys are wandering around the world. But they should be quiet for a while after their base was destroyed. The club's base? Lord Long, how did you know? Huiyun evil god's frown deepened. He felt that the intelligence personnel of the administration this time were really bad. They didn't even have the slightest bit of information about such an important matter. I have my own channels of information. Long Shira waved her hand and said, don't ask. Gongsun Shiyu was on Su Zijuan's list, the seat of the son of the club. But after all, Gongsun Shiyu was from the Xianyuan Palace. If this matter was spread out, people would know that the Xianyuan Palace, which was guarded by the humans of Kelowna, had a traitor. Seeing that Su Zijuan didn't immediately announce the list, it was obvious that she wanted to deal with this matter internally. She would probably hide the fact that Gongsun Shiyu was the 26th seat of the club, before announcing the list to the public. Little Shi is my disciple. If he could escape, he would have spread the news. Huiyun evil god said in a deep voice, therefore, I'm afraid that he has fallen into the enemy's hands. What do you want me to do? Shinryu of Kelowna frowned and said, you want me to help you find him? No, I will take care of Little Shi's matter. Huiyun evil god shook his head, but I hope that Lord Long can be the referee of this strength conference. What do you want me to do? Long Shirua couldn't help but open her mouth, referee? Huiyun evil god added, it's best if you can be the referee as a participant. Long Shirua sneered and said, King arranged it for me? Huiyun evil god smiled bitterly and said, Lord Long, the higher-ups mean that they can facilitate the establishment of a special demon race zone. However, the prerequisite is that we need more rights to speak in the Security Council. Therefore, this time, not only the administration, the Tao Association, and the demon race, these will all be separated into different sects and demon races, and they will all fight under the name of Kelowna. If I don't fight, you don't plan to set up this special demon race zone, right? Shinryu of Kelowna's eyes turned cold. The evil god of Fire Cloud took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Then he said seriously, "Please believe me. To draw a special zone for the demon race that is big enough for the demon race of the Divine Land to live in, this country has to bear a lot of pressure for the people." Long Shirua was silent and kept silent. Time passed slowly, and Huiyun evil god stood there motionlessly. After a long time, Long Shirua said calmly, "Prepare a mask for me." Mask? Huiyun evil god was startled. Long Shirua said impatiently, "Anything is fine. As long as it can cover my face, I will fight in this competition. Why aren't you going?" "Thank you, Lord Long." Huiyun evil god nodded and took a step back. After bowing, he strode away. After entering the venue of the Power Conference, all the transcendent representatives were free to move around. There were no seats arranged for the summit meeting, so they just sat wherever they liked. Basically, they all stayed far away from each other. At this time, in the Lee viewing platform, Riaz and Lyoga were being followed by a team of underwater city guards as they slowly walked through the entrance. However, at the end of the passage, they saw a woman with a voluptuous figure leaning against the wall. She was wearing a black leather coat. Riaz could not help but take a few more glances, and then received a look from Lyoga that said, "Greet me well tonight." He quickly shrunk his neck. The woman leaning against the wall then slowly walked toward them. "Greetings, Prince Riaz. I am Lamias, the current chief of the Black Order. I believe the underwater city is no stranger to the Black Order." Black Order. Before the final battle of the underwater city, the Black Order was a channel used by Louis XXXIX to explore the surface world. For that reason, the underwater city had also provided the Black Order with many magical technologies, the most unique of which was the design reference of the underwater city's sacred armor, which was supplied to the Black Order's later research and development armament. However, following the death of the previous chief of the Black Order and the unforeseen events of the underwater city, the connection between the underwater city and the Black Order had been severed. Riaz had only heard Lyoga mention it briefly. Lyoga the Witch, who was the shadow of Louis XXXIX, Emperor of the underwater city, was clearly more aware of the partnership with the Black Order. Riaz subconsciously looked at Lyoga. "What's left of the Black Order now?" At this time, Lyoga said indifferently, "I don't want to talk to small fries. You go, we're going to enter." "There's nothing left of the Black Order now." Lamias chuckled and said indifferently, "I'm the only one left." In an instant, the blue blood power on Lyoga's body flashed, and she entered a state of stress in an instant. Her face changed slightly. But Lamias in front of her still looked calm. Stimulated by Lyoga, the blue blood on Riaz's body was also restless. "I see." Lyoga slowly sighed and dispersed the blue blood power. She thought for a while and said, "It seems that the previous chief of the Black Order is just a small fries. Tell me, why are you looking for the underwater city?" At this time, Lamias said with a smile, "I don't know if the prince of the underwater city is interested in marrying another imperial concubine. Are you looking for a fight?" "I'm just looking for an ally." Riaz. The prince of the underwater city blinked at this time. "Huh, what's going on?" Chapter 2000. There was no room for Prince Riaz to interrupt. The opposing gazes between Lyoga and Lamias made Riaz exclaim how terrifying women were. The Prince of Undersea City only had one thought at this time. Flying serpent is indeed more adorable. I can assemble it however I want, command it however I want, and take off in any posture I want. It's also very durable. As long as I'm in the mood, I can do it for a whole day. I'm sorry, our prince is not interested in old women who have passed their expiration date. The Witch of Undersea City shrugged. "Auntie, How old are you this year? In fact, Lamias herself didn't know how old she was, even though her appearance was the same as before the spacetime disorder. She was clearly a fully ripe peach in her 20s, and it was still pink. Lamias said indifferently, Miss Fiancée, I think you may have misunderstood. I don't mean to carry a child in a carriage. I'm talking about the new Dark Saintess of the Black Order. After the reorganization of the Black Order, we re-elected the new Dark Saintess, a 16-year-old girl. If His Highness is willing, the Dark Saintess will be the bridge of communication between the two sides. Unfortunately, Lyoga said indifferently, the law of Undersea City is monogamy. Lamias chuckled and said, I've also read some information about the secret of Undersea City. The royal family of Undersea City doesn't seem to have such a rule, right? Now there is. Lyoga sneered. Riaz, immediately issue a decree to change the marriage model of the royal family to monogamy. What? Why, you don't want to change. The Witch of Undersea City looked at her with concern. Riaz smiled bitterly and only responded through the spiritual communication function of the collar. How can I change the law? His Majesty is just sleeping, he didn't die. Besides, aren't you the one in power? Why don't you change it yourself? You want to take a concubine that much. I really don't have this power. The Constitution doesn't give me this power, okay? Trash Riaz. Lamias naturally couldn't hear the conversation between the two in the little mental black room, but she could roughly guess what was going on. She suddenly chuckled and said, Of course, this is just a suggestion. There are many ways to cooperate, and even marriage can't guarantee that the relationship between the two parties will last forever. However, this time I represent the Black Order, and I come with sincerity. Lugo frowned. Lamias said directly, when the underwater city first appeared, the first contact was with Kelowna. Perhaps in your opinion, Kelowna has its incomparable superiority, but please don't forget that the interior of Kelowna is complicated. Dao sect, demon clan, administration, and a huge population. I'm afraid it's not so easy for the underwater city to establish itself in Kelowna. Lyoga said calmly, Is the Black Order enough? Lamias smiled and said, If you have seen the history of the North American continent where the Black Order is currently rooted, you will know that the history of this continent is actually very short. The most important thing is that there are not so many myths and legends on this continent, and it can be controlled by the power of human capital. To some extent, this is not something that Kelowna's system can compare with. Of course, we are only talking about convenience. Lyoga suddenly smiled and said, I believe that in addition to your Black Order, other organizations such as the Magician Association should also have very good conditions. Chief Lamias, don't you think you are too anxious? Am I anxious? Lamias smiled casually and said, Perhaps the underwater city is more anxious. With that said, Lamias suddenly approached the Witch of the underwater city. She lowered her head slightly and whispered in her ear, The huge submarine that the underwater city supported the Black Order before is still in the dock of the underwater city. Human technology may not be as good as the underwater city, but there are always some devices similar to surveillance that can be transmitted back. Before coming to attend this summit meeting, I watched a very wonderful battle at home. I don't know what the current people will think when they know that the underwater city may just be a broken underwater city that is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Lyoga said calmly, Is that so? Chief Lamias, do you think you know the underwater city well enough? In that case, you can do it at your own pace. It's up to you whether you want to show the humans on the ground or not. It doesn't matter if you want to see if the underwater city is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. I think the underwater city will be able to adapt to the battle at its own doorstep. Think about it. Lamias chuckled and said, Anyway, my intention has been conveyed. My obligation as the chief has been fulfilled. Other things have nothing to do with me. The witch of the underwater city couldn't help but frown at this time. What did this woman mean? Wasn't the alliance her own idea? But Lamia's didn't continue to stay. She had been waiting here by herself, so naturally, she would leave by herself at this moment. Lyoga, are you really going to cooperate with the Black Order again? Riaz more or less understood the character of the witch of the underwater city. When she was silent, it meant that she was seriously considering this matter. Lyoga said indifferently, "Why, are you not happy to have another imperial concubine? Anyway, this so-called fiancé of mine is just for show. I will give you a dark saintess to play with. Isn't that good?" Riaz lowered his head and sighed, muttering, "I don't want to play with her. Women are too troublesome. How can they be more fun than Flying Serpent?" The witch of the underwater city looked at him until Riaz broke out in a cold sweat. The witch of the underwater city smiled coldly and did not say anything. She said directly, "Let's go in." Someone actually said that the underwater city is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. As a prince, shouldn't you do something? The underwater city is indeed strong on the outside but weak on the inside. What can I do? Later, Prince Riaz was pulled by the ear and dragged in. This meeting with the prince of the underwater city didn't seem to be pleasant. Of course, Lamia's didn't expect it to be smooth before this. Lamia. Suddenly, a faint voice broke into Lamia's ears. She stopped and suddenly turned around. She didn't see a sea of people, but various transcendent teams entering one after another. This name. She only used this name once. In the predecessor of the current inhuman domain, the sacred domain with the 12 golden warriors in the space of the ancient Greek gods. In front of her were 8 huge stands. Various faces flashed through Lamia's eyes one by one, but she couldn't find the source of the voice that suddenly appeared and disappeared. Lady Lamia's? Lady Lamia's? The black-robed nun's voice suddenly pulled Lamia's spirit back to the present world from the ancient 3 realms battlefield mixed with undead, demonic beasts, gods, and golden warriors. "I'm just thinking about something. It's nothing." Lamia's shook her head gently at this time. "Let's go back." Lady Lamia's, this contact with the underwater city. Did the underwater city agree? They didn't refuse. Lamia's said indifferently, "The underwater city won't easily offend any party. It's a third party from the deep sea, so it has a neutral attribute. We just need to show our attitude. It's just that I'm afraid of trouble, so I'm a little early." The black-robed nun nodded and immediately said, "Lady Lamia's, as you estimated before, many transcendent teams have separated themselves in this strength conference. There are even people who directly participate in the battle under their own names." Lamia's chuckled and said, "It's not that I'm the same as I expected. This is the development that will happen. A country, a region, only get a place in the board of directors after risking their lives. There's no meaning at all. The big forces have been developing for hundreds of years, thousands of years, or even longer. To force these people to be fair with small groups that they have never heard of, do you think this is fair? The so-called World Transcendent Association, what's the difference between it and a chamber of commerce in a certain industry? Then, should we also participate in the battle under different names? No. Lamia said indifferently, "It's such a troublesome thing, I'll go up myself. As long as I beat the guy who doesn't want to join the board of directors, the effect will be the same." The black-robed nun suddenly showed a look of awe. She had experienced the scene of Chief Lamia's seizing power. Not long ago, Lady Lamia's suddenly appeared in the headquarters of the Black Order, and suppressed the remaining forces of the Black Order with absolute power. It was still unforgettable. "My lady, do you think that the person from that day—" The black-robed nun opened her mouth and then carefully said, "That taboo person who can't be mentioned will also appear in the strength conference today?" "Taboo person? The guy whose name can't be mentioned?" Lamia's was stunned and then laughed. "Do you think it's Voldemort, the guy whose name can't be mentioned?" You guys, how scared are you? That person has already said that he's just a businessman. He may not be interested in the small squabbles of mortals. Listening to the tone of the new chief, she seemed to know the person who can't be mentioned. The black-robed nun could not help but be startled at this time, and had a lot on her mind. Lamia suddenly said at this time, "By the way, although the underwater city did not directly reject the cooperation, it directly rejected the marriage. You can rest assured." This. The black-robed nun quickly lowered her head and said at this time, "No matter what I do in the future, I will listen to Lady Lamia's orders." Lamia said indifferently, Okay, I'm not as bad as the previous chief who needs a girl to sell her body to fight for benefits. This matter is just for Katerina and the other old people to see. Don't take it to heart. I'll go prepare for the entrance," the black-robed nun quickly said at this time. Lamia's nodded directly. After the black-robed nun left quickly, she looked back again and looked around the stands. With a trace of doubt, the new chief of the Black Order also returned with a trace of doubt. "Name, where do you belong?" "True Truth Sect, Kelowna Tao Association. This is my membership certificate in the association." One of the entrances of the Power Conference. An old Taoist with a childish face and white hair was reporting at this time. The old Taoist was followed by a few people. The agent in charge of the registration was searching for information in the Alliance. Well, the Tao Association does have the name True Truth Sect. Who are these people? At this time, the old senior Yang Taizi looked at Mr. Song's group behind him and then said without changing his expression, "They are all my disciples." Disciples? There are foreigners? The agent in charge of the registration couldn't help but look up and size up at this time. Two young and beautiful women, a foreign youth, and a middle-aged man dressed in the Ming Kingdom. This team's style is very unique, isn't it? Distinctionless education, distinctionless education. The old senior Yang Taizi said at this time. The agent in charge of the registration nodded and then gave Yang Taizi a number plate politely, telling him not to bring anyone in. In fact, the superior had given the order, as long as they had the certificate, they could be allowed to enter at an appropriate time. He didn't know about the other transcendent representatives, but just the Tao Sect Association of the Divine Land alone had split into at least 30 teams this time. The disciples of many sects had rushed over from other places overnight. In front of the Sun platform. "Name, where do you belong?" "Momo, the successor of the Taoist master sect of Dragon Tiger Mountain. This is my certificate." "Yes, there is no mistake. But, may I ask Mr. Momo, what are you carrying on your back?" "You can take it as." Momo smiled faintly, "something like a weapon." Taoist master of Dragon Tiger Mountain? Dragon Tiger Mountain was a sect with a long history, but it had very few successors and kept a low profile. However, there were always successors who came to subdue demons and demons. For the administration, they were the righteous people among the people. The administration had a good impression of this kind of people who volunteered to subdue demons and demons. But to use such a big wooden box to carry a weapon. Were you planning to smash your opponent to death with talismans? Do you need to open it? No, please come in, Taoist Master Momo. In the Ken platform. Night mechanism? The agent who was in charge of registration looked at him in confusion. Because the man who claimed to be Knight Gareth seemed to be in a very bad state. Let's not talk about the smell of sweat coming from his face. Just looking at this guy's dirty face, it was as if he had just climbed out of a mud pit. In short, he looked like he had overworked himself and was exhausted. Mr. Gareth was still leaning on a sword, which was the sword that he had used to walk over. Is there a problem? No problem. The agent who was in charge of registration quickly said, But Mr. Gareth, you don't look very well. Do you need help? We have a medical team here. Mr. Gareth said seriously, If you can give me a few bottles of energy mixture for infusion, I'll be very grateful. This is not a problem, the agent said in a daze. I'll get someone to prepare it right away. In short, this Mr. Gareth seemed to be really poor in money. In the Lee platform. Name, affiliation. The agent who was in charge of registration was writing rapidly with his head down, recording something. He didn't raise his head when he felt someone coming. If you don't have an affiliation, can you participate in your own name? If you don't have an affiliation, use your own place of birth as the division, and fill out a form like this. As the agent spoke, he picked up a form from the side and laid it out. He looked up at this time. Suddenly, the agent who was in charge of the complicated registration at the Lee platform seemed to be petrified. His mind was blank. Just pretend you didn't see me and continue with your work. This is the form I filled out. Sorry to disturb you. The agent's pupils were scattered like a puppet. He subconsciously reached out to take back the form, then nodded silently. For a long time, the agent was like this. It wasn't until someone came to the registration area and shouted a few times that the agent turned around. Are you still going to register or not? You've been in a daze. Is this how the Kelowna administration receives people? Sorry, I'll register you right away. The agent took a deep breath and shook his head gently to get rid of the confusion. He started his work again. He lowered his head and saw that there was an extra form in his hand. It was an application form to participate in the competition as an individual. Participant. Little Mage and Pansy team location. City of exclusion, nothing, just 2 items. It'll be weird if it passes, the agent muttered, but he still took the form in the end. Chapter 2001. Rice cakes, peeled grapes, diced mangoes and bananas soaked in yogurt. And a cup full of honey water. Luo Dance was now in front of Su Zijuan, arranging these things one by one, like offerings on the altar. What are you doing? Su Zijuan squinted. Watching the live broadcast. The butterfly monster said naturally, so you won't be hungry at noon. I've also prepared something for you, Sister Zijuan. I don't eat these things. Su Zijuan snorted. Not these, it's this. Then, the butterfly monster stuffed a grape-sized ball into Su Zijuan's mouth. The princess of Xianyuan royal family frowned and wanted to spit it out, but a fishy smell rushed into her nose. Su Zijuan's canine teeth were bitten open by the thing in her mouth. What's this? Su Zijuan blinked and made a cracking sound. Broken ice made of blood. Luo Dance said, I mixed some honey and yogurt. Although the taste was very novel, he felt that Hanba's body would eventually end up with diarrhea. Su Zijuan opened her mouth. At the same time, the butterfly monster stuffed something into her mouth again. It turned out to be a long stick of blood popsicle. Then the butterfly monster held the pillow and turned on the TV. She held the honey water and watched carefully. Wow! I seem to see. Hey, who is this? He looks familiar. This is Bai Jie, a Taoist priest of Kunlun Mountain, a shameless old man. Su Zijuan said indifferently with the blood popsicle in her mouth. But at this time, the doorbell of the pet hospital rang. It was the back doorbell. Su Zijuan frowned and asked, Is there anyone who wants to see a doctor or get medicine today? No? The butterfly monster said directly, It's closed these days. Even if someone wants to take medicine, I'll send it directly. I don't know who it is at this time. It should be that guy you go to open the door. The little butterfly monster responded, put on her slippers, and hurriedly opened the back door. When she opened the back door, she saw a tall figure with his head down. She had one hand on her hat, revealing her long black hair that looked like seaweed. Her other hand was stretched out horizontally, and her right leg was raised, leaning against her left leg. Half of her buttocks were raised up, and half of her buttocks were raised. The moment the door was opened, the tall figure suddenly turned 360 degrees, followed by moonwalk and break dance. After a while, he stopped and opened his hands. Surprise! Zijuan Wu. It's you, huh? The butterfly monster blinked her eyes. Excuse me? Who are you looking for? It's me. The man took off his sunglasses, revealing a hairy face. Brother Shaoxing, it's you. Are you shocked by my new dress? Yo. The little butterfly from the hospital. Yo. You're still so cute. Yo. It's really Mr. Sun. Luo Dance was stunned at this time. But why are you? Sun Shaoxing had been missing for a long time. Since Sun Shaoxing left the city of Forbidden, the Milesium Bar here had been closed. The monsters in the city of Forbidden had one less place to release their stress as social animals. I called Sun Shaoxing here. Suzy Juan's voice came from behind at this time. Come in, don't stand outside stupidly. 8 stands, 8 registration booths, and hundreds of staff on the spot. The list of participants of the Power Conference had been freshly released. At the same time, the registration booths were closed. At this time, those who hadn't registered were automatically regarded as giving up the qualification to participate and the qualification to be a member of the Security Council, but retained the right to participate in the World Extraordinary Association and become a member. There are more teams than expected. The list was a little thick. Fire Cloud Evil God weighed the list in his hand and was too lazy to look carefully. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. The news that the Taoist Association and the Monster Alliance in Kelowna had automatically split off to participate in the war had spread early. For this reason, many regions followed suit. There were really all kinds of strange teams coming out. There were even a bunch of people who participated in the war in their own name. The most interesting thing was that a region in Oceania had temporarily declared independence yesterday and joined the war after becoming an independent country. It seemed to be called Hurt. Perhaps after today's conference, it would directly disappear and become the first country to perish because of the Power Conference, and be recorded in the history book. At this time, the door of the command room of the Qian stand was directly opened. Shinryu of Kelowna was walking in with an anti-face. His dead fish eyes made people tremble. Old fart, what are you doing? Hasn't it started yet? I'm telling you, I'll leave whether I can finish it before dark or not. It's about to start, Lord Long, don't be anxious. Fire Cloud Evil God laughed and said, This is the overall list of names for this competition. As the referee, you should hold a copy. Shinryu of Kelowna reluctantly took a stack and said without looking at it, Where's the thing I asked you to prepare? It's ready, Consultant Long. An agent quickly walked over and held out a black balaclava with both hands. What is this? Long Shirua glanced at it and immediately frowned. The agent quickly said, This is the latest 6th-generation mask developed by the agency. Not only does it have the functions of a normal mask, but it also has a thermal imaging function and a tactical reclining dodge function. Additionally, it's made of breathable fabric, like a thief. Shinryu of Kelowna of Shinryu snorted and waved his hand. His palm formed a claw and directly grabbed a piece of stone from the wall. The moment the stone flew over, it was crazily cut by something. When it fell into Kelowna of Shinryu's hand, it had turned into a stone dragon king mask. Then he directly pressed it on his face. This is what you call a mask? You can do it yourself, why did you ask us to prepare for it? Okay, you can go to your work. Fire Cloud Evil God waved his hand and immediately looked at Long Shirua and said, Lord Long, since you're ready, let's go. There was no scene of a sea of people. Although there were definitely a lot of people in the 8 stands, when they were scattered, it felt like they were in 2s and 3s. At the same time, it was very quiet. Everyone had entered the arena and was ready. In other words, those who should come, have come. At this time, on the heaven stage, Fire Cloud Evil God, who was wearing a white training suit, and a woman wearing an ancient Dragon King mask, walked out at the same time. The focus of all eyes was on Fire Cloud Evil God and the woman wearing the ancient Dragon King mask. This woman's identity seemed to be confirmed. Kelowna of Shinryu. Kelowna of Shinryu had always participated in the extraordinary summit meeting, but until now, Kelowna of Shinryu had never officially appeared. This was the first time she appeared in the eyes of the world. This woman surnamed Long, why is she wearing such an ugly mask? Below the stage, in one of the stands in the camp of the Magician Association, the Tower Master of Crimson Blaze, Evil God, snorted at this time. She doesn't have the face to see people? That's right, this shameless woman is burning, killing, and looting everywhere. She definitely doesn't have the face to see people. In all honesty, although Kelowna of Shinryu would occasionally go to the inhuman domain in the name of visiting her cheap disciple, the Tower Master of Radiance, she had never committed arson or murder. The Ice Tower Master could only ask her hot-tempered husband to speak less. At this time, Fire Cloud Evil God opened his mouth to speak. Looking around, Fire Cloud Evil God felt that he had the temperament of a peerless master. However, he wasn't necessarily weaker than Fire Cloud Evil God in some aspect. Therefore, he didn't plan to pretend for too long. After clearing his throat, he directly spoke. His voice slowly spread throughout the entire arena, and everyone could hear him clearly. This method of transmitting sound without the help of any equipment could be considered a standard configuration. At this time, the media felt that it was a novelty, but it didn't attract too much attention. I believe that everyone has waited for a long time, so I won't waste any more words. Now, as the representative of Kelowna administration, I announce that the first World Extraordinary Martial Arts Conference. Isn't it the Strength Conference? This old dog actually smuggled his own stuff. Cough cough, for the sake of convenience, this conference will be called the Strength Conference, from now on. Fire Cloud Evil God said, and suddenly stretched out his hand. At the same time, between the stands, those stone pillars carved with the image of a divine dragon spitting out pearls had their pearls peeled off in an instant, and then shot toward Fire Cloud Evil God. At this time, Fire Cloud Evil God was flicking his fingers at the pearls that were flying toward him. Through his flicking fingers, each of the pearls was shot in all directions of the 8 trigrams grandstand, and fell into the hands of some people, and these people were the ancient extraordinary giants like the Magician Association. However, not all of the pearls were ejected, and there were still 2/3 of them left. At this time, Fire Cloud Evil God slowly said, each of the pearls will represent a spot in the board of directors. The side that has already obtained the pearls will temporarily obtain a spot. He suddenly paused and looked around. When he saw that the venue had become restless in an instant, he said indifferently, "What I'm saying is that we've temporarily obtained a place, not that we've already confirmed this place. Everyone can start the challenge. If you feel that you have enough ability, you can choose to challenge the side that has already obtained the temporary spots. And the holder of the temporary spots must accept the challenge." There was nothing to say. If you feel that your fist is bigger, then go and grab it. What he meant was, you are also welcome to grab it in this competition. Then what about the remaining spots? In an instant, a sharp voice came from one of the stands. Fire Cloud Evil God had only ejected 1/3 of the pearls, and there were still many left. The Evil God of Fire Cloud said calmly, "This is the second competition format of this assembly. As long as anyone feels that they are qualified, they can directly come up to the stage to claim a provisional qualification, and then automatically become a provisional substitute member, and also accept challenges, until there is no one left to challenge any of the pearls." The atmosphere of the scene was a little different in an instant. There was a trace of desolation. But Fire Cloud Evil God's next words were like a huge wave of waves. "Now, I will announce the last competition system. The candidates who have already obtained the temporary spots can also challenge other qualified holders. That is, until no one challenges. Each person or each side can have a maximum of 3 pearls. Above." After saying that, Fire Cloud Evil God directly pushed the remaining pearls forward. In an instant, The remaining pearls shot directly to the top of the huge stage. Moreover, Fire Cloud Evil God showed off a lot, and used his supreme true power to arrange these pearls into the shape of the Big Dipper. "Why don't you embroider a flower on it?" Kelowna Shinryu immediately said. Thus, Fire Cloud Evil God couldn't take it anymore, and directly rushed out of the heaven stands, stepped on the air, and grabbed 3 pearls from the top of the stage, steadily landed on the stage, and loudly said, "The first session of the World Extraordinary Martial Arts Competition officially begins." His voice shook all directions. "Motherf *Kerr, this old dog is so shameless. He actually grabbed 3 pearls for himself, and only gave us 1. What is the meaning of this?" No one knew where the voice came from, but it was definitely from one of the ancient extraordinary forces. However, Fire Cloud Evil God was currently standing on the stage, and his meaning was very clear: anyone could come and snatch it. However, for a long while, the people present at the competition didn't move. At this time, Fire Cloud Evil God said indifferently, "It seems that everyone still needs some time to digest this competition's rules, then I will return to the stage first, and quietly await everyone's challenge." He immediately leaped back to his seat. At this time, the pearls that represented the temporary qualifications were still hovering above the stage, but the 8 stands still didn't move. "Since everyone is so modest, then I won't be polite." In an instant, a black shadow directly shot out, and then rushed to the pearls of the Big Dipper, and directly grabbed 3 pearls with one hand. This person was wrapped in a black robe, and wore a silver mask, and at the same time, carried 3 scattered cross swords on his back. His body was thin, but he gave off a fierce murderous aura. With the 3 pearls in his hand, the man steadily landed in the center of the stage like Fire Cloud Evil God. He looked forward, and at a glance, in his line of sight, the extraordinary people on the 4 stands all looked at him with shocked gazes. The man chuckled, then, "I will kindly accept these." Before he finished his words, the man suddenly felt a terrible heavy blow from the back of his head, and then there was no more and then. Behind the man, Father Stella, who was wearing big pants, said loudly at this time, "F***CKU. Forget about the first one, and now another one? Do you think I'm dead?" With that, Father Stella directly kicked the man out of the stage dozens of meters away, and even spat. When did Father Stella go up, it seemed that no one noticed. This priest of the church going up on stage was fine, but squatting and beating people with a stick was really Paladin Wasco couldn't watch anymore. He only hoped that no one noticed his existence at this time. As for Miss Nun, Lavinia, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me, don't faint. Father Stella didn't seem to be interested in what the 2 people of the church looked like. At this time, he weighed the 3 pearls in his hand, and after thinking for a while, he suddenly flicked one of the pearls back to the Big Dipper in the sky. Father Stella now held 2 pearls in his hand, stood still, and even put the weapon used to beat people with a stick directly on his shoulder, waiting. This weapon was the legendary physics Holy Sword, Xiao Gun. Chapter 2002. Father Stella had been standing on the stage for quite a while, but ever since the guy who was knocked unconscious by the physics Holy Sword was brought off the stage, no one else went on stage. Originally, it was expected that the Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner of the Magician Association should have gone on stage to look for trouble. But he didn't. Everyone's line of sight and camera almost simultaneously shifted to the Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner. The Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner just sat there silently with his hands crossed. His face was expressionless, as if he had no intention of making a move. This was strange. Father Stella had insulted the Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner during the summit meeting. The Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner shouldn't be able to tolerate this, right? But now, this Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner, not to mention going on stage, he didn't even have the slightest bit of murderous aura. Logically speaking, after leaving the Forbidden City, the various representatives of the Transcendence would more or less reveal a trace of unusual aura. But the Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner at this moment, if one didn't pay attention, it would be easy to overlook his existence. Time passed little by little. The Scarlet Blaze Tower's owner seemed to be getting on stage, but Father Stella was still looking at Xiao Gun standing on the stage. He couldn't just drag on like this. At this moment, Kelowna Shinryu, wearing the Dragon King mask, directly stepped on the air and landed on the stage. The priest's gaze instantly froze. He raised his eyebrows and opened his mouth. "I see that your figure is quite good, you must be very durable." But before the priest finished speaking, Kelowna Shinryu, who landed on the stage, directly waved his hand, and a golden dragon-shaped shockwave shot out. At this moment, Father Stella didn't seem to care about his mouth. He held the physics holy sword in his hand and directly smashed towards the golden dragon-shaped shockwave. The shockwave wasn't smashed away in an instant. Father Stella's body was directly pushed back a distance of 7 or 8 meters before the physics holy sword finally smashed the shockwave away. The people watching the live broadcast didn't know what was going on at the scene, but some of the netizens were in an uproar. It was unknown which little genius uploader it was, but he had actually added a classic, "No one can beat me in BMG BGM" when it came to Kelowna Shinryu's appearance, a variation of the Unspeakable Sutra, outshining the others. On the field, Father Strahl, who had stopped, switched the crowbar from his right hand to his left, and then shook his right palm. The sharp-eyed people could even see that Father Strahl's right palm was already steaming and turning red at this time. "Forget it, I'm not going to fight with a guy with a blue lock, unless the officials give me an explanation." Father Stella's voice was very low, so low that only Kelowna Shinryu could hear it. Long Shirua looked deeply at this talkative priest and said indifferently, "Got it, go back to where you belong. Since you've taken the 3 beads, don't disturb the proceedings of the conference. Otherwise, as the referee of this conference, I have no choice but to take action against you." Kelowna Shinryu's voice was very loud, probably to deliberately let the world hear it, especially the latter half of his words. Referee. Kelowna Shinryu was not a contestant, she was the referee. At this moment, Father Stella shrugged, patted his butt and left directly, as if he had no backbone at all, and really patted his butt. As the referee? In the crowd, a man wearing a wrinkled white suit could not help but frown at this moment. Farrell. But at this moment Mr. Gareth, who was beside Farrell, seemed to be relieved. Fortunately, the referee is not on the field. This time, there will be one less strong opponent in this conference. While saying this, Mr. Gareth was holding the only bead in his hand. This was shot by the evil god of the fire cloud before the start of the conference. The moment the bead was shot, Mr. Gareth felt a little surprised. He thought that with the night mechanism's current condition, it would be difficult to be recognized as a first-line force by the Kelowna administration. In short, Mr. Gareth felt that as long as he could keep this bead, he could go back and report to Her Majesty. By the way, Mr. Gareth was now on an infusion of glucose and saline. Not good. Who would have thought that Farrell would directly say such a thing at this time, as if he was about to make a move? Mr. Gareth was so scared that he did not care about his manners at this time, and directly reached out to hug him from behind. But how could Farrell be hugged by a man from behind? With a flash, he had already escaped from Mr. Gareth's surprise attack. Just as Mr. Gareth's expression turned bitter, and he was inwardly cursing, Farrell stopped. At this time, a middle-aged man wearing a Chinese tunic suit appeared silently in front of Farrell. He had white hair on both sides of his head, and his expression was dignified. This man at this time chuckled and said, "Kelowna is a big place with abundant resources, and capable people are everywhere. Not to mention, there are many strong foreign guests gathered here. Mr. Farrell, why are you in such a hurry? Don't scare them away." Farrell did not understand. Mr. Gareth had learned Kelowna language for a few years, but with half a bucket of knowledge, he could only understand the general idea. This was actually translated by Wolfgang later on. Yes, at this time, there were 2 people in front of Farrell, One was Mr. Song, and the other was Wolfgang. Mr. Gareth did not know where these two guys came from, but since they dared to stand in front of Farrell, they seemed to know each other? All right. Farrell nodded calmly and stood to the side, not moving a muscle. Mr. Gareth was secretly relieved, but when he looked at Mr. Song, they had already disappeared. When did they leave? Suddenly, Mr. Gareth felt that the bead that Fire Cloud Evil God shot seemed to be a hot thing. He had no one to discuss it with at this time. The number of people who came to the night institution this time was very small, and he was the only one who could take charge. As for Lancelot, who came later, she was not here at this time. Lancelot was in the lounge at this time. She said that she was inexplicably caught and trained for a night, so she was dirty. She wanted to take a bath and change her clothes. Just at this time, a voice suddenly sounded. Although I am a referee, I will also participate in this conference as a contestant. I remember that, at the summit, someone said that he wanted to challenge me. You get down here yourself. Hearing this, Mr. Gareth's face turned pale. Can't you finish your words at once? Kelowna Shinryu's announcement that he would be the referee caused a small commotion, but before the commotion completely stopped, Long Shirua spoke again. She announced that she would also participate in this competition as a contestant. This was very uncomfortable. Why is it that the strong people of Kelowna are each more outstanding than the other? But at this time, the strong people who were watching the show tacitly turned their attention to this strength conference. Oh, the initiator of the first World Extraordinary Martial Arts Competition, a strong person from ancient Persia, a legendary warrior who called himself Haoma. The man had a unique beard, a large white cloth wrapped around his head, and a scimitar embedded with gems on his waist. At this time, Kelowna Shinryu's voice had not yet faded away. The legendary warrior instantly pulled out the scimitar on his waist, shouted something, and directly turned into a flash of light, shooting toward the stage of the conference. A strong airflow bounced around the legendary warrior, and at this time, the stage was swept up by a sandstorm. Special effects, momentum, for a moment, the limelight was unparalleled. But when the sandstorm was about to invade the stage, Kelowna Shinryu once again waved his hand and slapped out a dragon-shaped shockwave. The attacking fan was not like Father Stella's holy sword, which could break the dragon-shaped shockwave, but it was scattered by itself. The figure of Haoma was directly sent flying in the air and smashed into the ground outside the stage. The legendary warrior from ancient Persia was directly buried in the ground above his chest. At this time, Haoma pressed his hands on the ground and used all his strength to pull his body out, but he was covered in dust and looked very embarrassed. If you can blow even a grain of sand into this stage, it's my loss. Kelowna Shinryu snorted coldly at this time. You've gone too far. You're the one who provoked me in public. If you have the ability, blow a grain of sand into this stage. Kelowna Shinryu was too lazy to say more at this time. Don't be incompetent and furious. She was in a bad mood today, and now her mood was getting worse. Since she stepped on this stage, the restlessness and uneasiness had increased exponentially. It was as if something bad was about to happen. At this time, Long Shirua was not in the mood to care about this so-called extraordinary person who came out of nowhere. Ancient Persia myths? She did not mean to look down on this divine system, but at this time, Kelowna Shinryu was inexplicably irritated. Even if the immortals came, if they did not like this, they might come up and beat them up. Roar! At this time, the legendary warrior roared angrily at this time, and suddenly a powerful force rose from Haoma's body. At the same time, Haoma even took out a small bottle from his arms. He pressed his thumb and directly broke the cap of the small bottle, as if he wanted to drink it. However, before Haoma drank the liquid in the small bottle, a huge golden dragon claw appeared in front of him. The dragon claw directly grabbed his body. As the true dragon of the divine land on the stage raised and waved his hand, the legendary warrior kicked lifted up, smashed down, lifted up, smashed down, lifted up again, and smashed down again, until he started to doubt his life. After more than 100 hits, the golden dragon claw disappeared, leaving behind the legendary warrior, Hao Ma, who was paralyzed like a pile of mud outside the stage that was full of potholes. At this time, a Hao Ma, who was lying on the ground with one last breath, moved his fingers, and opened his eyes reluctantly. He seemed to be looking for something around him. But when he saw a small bottle that had fallen beside him, the liquid in the small bottle spilled out directly into the soil, and then instantly evaporated. The legendary warrior was dumbfounded. No! No! He used his last bit of strength to quickly crawl to the side of the bottle, reaching out to grab a handful of soil, and stuffed it directly into his mouth. No! No! This legendary warrior had already stuffed the third handful of soil into his mouth, and it seemed that he couldn't stop at all. Everyone was shocked by this legendary warrior's behavior, but there were many transcendents present, and at this time, they understood the warrior's mood very well. Because this bottle of medicine was really expensive, but it wasn't unreasonably expensive, because its effect was absolutely amazing, but the problem was that Hao Ma didn't even have time to drink it before it was all spilled. Well, could it be that, besides us, someone else also got God's tear from Master Kelowna? What is he doing, eating soil? On the spectator's stand, on the side of Kelowna Taoism Association, Song Howren looked at this legendary warrior eating soil with interest, and was slightly surprised. Taoist Master 100 Tribulations, who was sitting next to him, said, "Usually, a ghost eating soil is a poor ghost who has no one to burn incense for him. He has nothing to eat, so he can only eat soil." "President, you mean this legendary warrior is possessed by a ghost?" Song Howren said with a strange expression, "And he's a poor ghost." Taoist Master 100 Tribulations laughed. "Our Kelowna's ghost shouldn't possess this barbarian's body. But this guy looks really poor, and he's going to die young. Well, it shouldn't be like this?" "President, you know physiognomy?" Song Howren asked curiously. Taoist Master 100 Tribulations laughed. Just a little. Song Howren shook his head inwardly. At this moment, the legendary warrior, Hao Ma, seemed to be lifted up by something, and was thrown back to the spectator's stand where he was originally sitting. At this moment, Hao Ma, who was kindly thrown back to the spectator's stand by Kelowna's Shinryu, had a mouth full of soil, but his eyes were unfocused, and he seemed to have lost his soul. Hao Ma's whole body was paralyzed, and the people from the same group went up to check on him with grief and anger. The legendary warrior was muttering to himself as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he could only say, "Abba, Abba." The leader of the ancient Persian Shinryu team said loudly, "Kelowna's Shinryu will remember this. Abba, Abba, oh, poor Hao Ma. You're the legendary warrior. Perhaps after today, a Hao Ma would become the legendary Abba." After throwing the legendary warrior back to his original seat, Kelowna's Shinryu looked around. Seeing that no one was going to stand on the spectator stand, he directly grabbed 3 pearls from the Big Dipper in the sky, and then jumped back to the Qian spectator stand next to Fire Cloud Evil God. Lord Long, Hao Ma seemed to have taken out something at the end, and it was supposed to be used. Maybe it was something he thought could turn the situation around. Fire Cloud Evil God chuckled and said, "Lord Long, you have great foresight. You killed your opponent before he even used his trump card. You are truly brilliant." Kelowna's Shinryu nodded lightly, and then didn't say anything. Enigmatic, he directly walked into the tunnel behind the spectator's stand. "Old man, you take care of them, I need to take a call." "Lord Long, don't worry." Fire Cloud Evil God laughed. Kelowna's side already had 6 pearls. It was a good sign. As soon as he walked into the tunnel, Kelowna's Shinryu directly hid in a corner, then picked up the phone, covered his mouth, and said in a low voice, "Hello. Sister Rin. Are you looking for me? I was washing clothes, so I didn't hear the call, sorry. It's okay, I just wanted to see what you were doing. Xiao Shi, are you watching TV? It's very exciting. It's much better than Ultraman beating the little monsters. Quick, look. Okay, I'll turn on the TV after I dry the clothes. Good girl, Xiao Shi. Kelowna's Shinryu didn't have any foresight. It was just that when Hao Ma was about to take the pills, the phone suddenly rang and vibrated in her pocket, distracting her. Chapter 2003. The old man Fire Cloud shamelessly took the 3 beads and left. After Father Stella slapped them in the face, the church also had 3 beads. As for Kelowna's Shinryu, after defeating the legendary Abba warrior Hao Ma, he also took 3 beads. Currently, Kelowna's side was temporarily leading with 6 beads, faster than the other transcendents by a few lengths. Do you think this is a horse race? A few lengths? Madame Rin could not help but glare at old Q. A third-rate trash magazine like them naturally did not have their own channel, so they could only rely on an online platform to do a live text broadcast. I think it's more lively this way? Old Q thought for a while. Madame Rin immediately lost her temper and continued to pay attention to the live competition. She did not have any idea at first. When Fire Cloud Demon God showed his hand, she did not feel anything, but when Stella knocked him out, she felt this way. But when Kelowna's Shinryu used Shockwave, she felt that it was full. After that, when Long Shirua defeated the legendary warrior Hao Ma, she wanted to stand up and cheer, okay? Who did not have a sense of national pride these days. They were just short of holding up banners and burning firecrackers to form a human wave chorus. The special effects were full, the budget was exploding, and the eyes were filled with holy light. This was what the so-called transcendence should be like. Many people even specially asked for leave today and stayed at home to watch the world flourish. That's right, at this moment the world's economy stopped. But after Kelowna's Shinryu left the stage, no one else stepped on the stage for a full 10 minutes. Trash. I already have 3 beads, I won't go on stage and wait for a spot. You don't even dare to go on stage. Father Stella shouted at the top of his voice. You spineless people still want to compete with me, Stella? Come on. Come and challenge me if you have the ability. It was hard for Paladin Wasco to judge whether the church had gained the upper hand in the upcoming matches. But one thing was for sure, the church's hatred towards Stella had exploded. This was outside the city of abstinence. Sister Lavinia's baseball bat and folding stool could not subdue Stella at all. However, it had to be said that Father Stella's shout was very effective. It was like a signal, and in a split second hundreds of strong auras emerged from the 8 grandstands. The aurora-like brilliance filled the stage of Power Conference, and at the same time, a dozen figures dashed out together. Their goal was the many pearls arranged in the Big Dipper on the stage. After the dozens of figures took the lead, in the next moment, another dozens of black figures took action at lightning speed. However, although the number of remaining pearls was not small, it was not enough to provide 3 pearls for each person. In other words, the first wave of fierce battles had only officially begun. The evil god of Fire Cloud, Stella, Kelowna, and Shinryu made their moves as if it was the opening ceremony of the conference. This was the real Power Conference. In an instant, the 100 by 100 meter stage could not accommodate so many extraordinary moves at once. Among them were Tao arts, demonic secret arts, magic and shroud techniques, transformation techniques, and even burst technique. Although the stage was huge, how could it withstand the bombardment of so many extraordinary powers? Seeing that the eruption of extraordinary powers was about to reach the 8 viewing platforms, the faces of the reporters in the media zone instantly turned pale. Faced with the onslaught of such terrifying powers, the puny ordinary people couldn't even escape. At this time, Kelowna and Shinryu made their move. As the referee of the competition, she clasped her hands together and opened them. Instantly, A wall of golden light rose up from the edges of the stage, trapping all the transcendents who had entered to compete for the beads in this 100-meter by 100-meter space. The appearance of the golden wall blocked all the extraordinary powers that were shooting at random. This meant that Kelowna and Shinryu were setting up this barrier with their own power. However, even with such a sturdy barrier, Kelowna and Shinryu did not seem to be affected at all. Her voice was like the might of heaven, filling every corner of the conference venue. I will give you 5 minutes to fight for the pearls. After 5 minutes, return to your seats. Then, the competition will begin. Those who break the rules will be trapped in this barrier forever. This barrier, I can keep it open until the end of time. Try it if you don't believe me. Some people did not believe her and madly attacked the golden wall at the edge. However, even after hundreds of attacks, the golden wall did not budge at all. This terrifying barrier could be kept open until the end of time? How was that possible? The power of the earth is flowing to her. On the grandstand, the Ice Tower Master of the Magician Association said helplessly in a low voice, "Endless, endless." As expected, no one can defeat Shinryu in this land. I'm afraid that the consumption of this barrier cannot compare to the speed of replenishment. To the transcendence of this world, the true dragon is like a nuclear bomb that can be fired without limit. Every move of hers is an ultimate move, but we can't. Unless it is an instant kill situation, otherwise. The Scarlet Flame Tower Master, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly said this. Then, he shook his head and suddenly said, "In order to defeat her, perhaps the only way is when she leaves this place. But the chances of victory are almost negligible." The Ice Tower Master bitterly smiled. Even without the power of the earth, her body is already the limit of what this world can contain. If you can trap her, won't she escape? The Scarlet Blaze Tower Master did not say anything. He thought that if he could lure Shinryu into the inhuman domain, and then use the first Tower Master Hui Yao's control of the inhuman domain, would it be possible to trap Shinryu in Kelowna? Unfortunately, Hui Yao was just a guy who was obsessed with the pursuit of the truth of magic. He had no interest in the struggles of the modern world. Zhong Luoyue was listening to the conversation between the two Tower Masters. She looked at the battle on the stage and saw that Shinryu in Kelowna was able to suppress so many powerful people by herself. She finally understood. Kelowna. As long as they had Shinryu in Kelowna, they would be able to fight against the extraordinary of the entire world. In the long history of the world, the ancient transcendents had always classified the divine land as a forbidden zone for transcendent. It was not without reason. The outside world was very big. However, was Kelowna that small? Kelowna. This was the country with the largest population in the world. Zhong Luoyue suddenly lowered her head and looked at the bead in her hand. When the Fire Cloud Evil God shot a bead in front of the Tower Master of the Crimson Blaze Tower, the Tower Master of the Crimson Blaze Tower threw it to her. It was obvious that the Tower Master of the Crimson Blaze Tower did not care about the so-called advantage at the beginning of the battle. However, Zhong Luoyue was thinking about another matter. The Magician Association, who also wanted to get more members of the board of directors. Otherwise, the Magician Association, the oldest and most powerful organization in the European continent, only had so few members. It would not be good if word got out. However, whether it was the Tower Master of the Crimson Blaze Tower or the Ice Tower Master, they did not seem to have any plans to make a move. What were they waiting for? What kind of opportunity? However, Zhong Luoyue was careful. She realized that in this competition, there were not many people from the Kelowna Dao Association or the Demon Race Alliance who participated. Most of the people who participated were the teams that did not attract too much attention during the extraordinary summit a few days ago. In an instant, Zhong Luoyue understood what the Tower Master of the Crimson Blaze Tower and the Tower Master of the Ice Frost Tower were waiting for. Those who did not participate were waiting for the same thing. They must be aiming for an accurate sniper. These guys. It's useless to snatch, they must be able to protect it. On the spectator's stand, the young celestial master of the Dragon Tiger Mountain sat with his legs together. There was a big dumpling that had just been unwrapped on his leg. He casually ate it with 2 wooden chopsticks and muttered, "What a group of old people! By the way, Mr. Farrell, we meet again." The young celestial master of the Dragon Tiger Mountain suddenly raised his head and looked behind him. In his inverted vision, there was an expressionless man wearing a wrinkled white suit. The young celestial master of the Dragon Tiger Mountain blinked and said, "There's only one dumpling left today? I'm looking forward to your performance," Farrell said indifferently. "Let's talk about it after we're full. You'll lose energy if you're hungry." Momo answered casually, "Besides, it's more likely that I'm here to join in the fun. After all, there are already so many seniors from Kelowna. Juniors like us should just stay outside and shout." "You have such strength," Farrell said, "why don't you show it to the world? Even if you do, the world won't become peaceful. This kind of thing is very troublesome." Momo shrugged and said, "Besides, there's an old saying in Kelowna, there's always someone better than you. You'll never know how insignificant you are. It's too tiring to fight for fame and fortune. It's more practical to be an unaffiliated person. By the way, Mr. Farrell, do you want to read my fortune? I haven't opened the market today, so I don't have enough money for dinner. How about buying a safety charm? Wealth is easy for you to get," Farrell said indifferently. "It's enough for food and clothes." Momo smiled. "Do you know when a moneymaker is the happiest?" Farrell seemed to have entered Momo's rhythm, thinking for a while, "When you make money." Momo smiled. "When you count money, you don't need a lot, just 3 to 5 bills will do. You just need to hold them in your hand and spit on your fingers. Then, you count them one by one." Farrell kept silent for a while, walking out of Momo's rhythm, saying indifferently, "Thank you for the charm. I'll pay you back." Concentration charm is not a high-grade product. Momo waved his hand. 30 yuan for one, just pay." Farrell didn't speak. He disappeared with a gust of wind. Momo sighed, saying helplessly, "Whoring without paying is bad." The young heavenly master of Dragon Tiger Mountain gazed at the stage inside the golden light wall, seeing a young man in a yin-yang Taoist robe. Behind the man in yin-yang Taoist robe, there was a huge shadow of a warrior's upper body. There were 3 beads in the man's hand. "Interesting." The young heavenly master of Dragon Tiger Mountain smiled. "This should be the ghost-catching orthodoxy in Japan. Yin-yang master. Do you want to go down and test it out?" 5 minutes was neither too long nor too short, especially when so many transcendents were squeezed together and fighting each other. It was too much for the eyes to take in. However, the golden light wall didn't intend to trap them completely. When a transcendent who stole 2 beads tried to leave, he really did pass through the golden light wall. But when he tried to return, he found that he could no longer enter the golden light wall. That was to say, he could leave at any time, but he couldn't enter again if he regretted. However, for those who had obtained 3 beads, it was meaningless to stay any longer. Instead, they had to risk their beads being snatched by others. Therefore, after the first 2 to 3 minutes of the chaotic battle, the extraordinary who had already obtained the pearl wisely chose to leave the stage. For them, even if they were challenged in the later stages of the competition, it was still better than being besieged by a group of people on stage. After 4 minutes and 30 seconds, all the beads in the Big Dipper had been snatched. Now, only dozens of transcendents who didn't get any beads were left on the stage, vexed. This time, the battle for the pearl was not a battle to the death. Everyone would not really fight to the death. However, it was inevitable that some of the transcendents would be injured during the battle. Fortunately, they were only lightly injured and did not affect the main event of the competition. 5 minutes had passed, and the golden light wall was shattered. Shinryu of Kelowna walked out, looking around at the crowd, saying indifferently, "The competition will start in 10 minutes. Whoever wants to challenge, come on the stage." In the corner of the stands, Rikyuj suddenly waved her hand in front of Riaz, as if nothing had happened. But in Riaz's vision, with the help of the collar, an arc-shaped light screen appeared in front of him. On the light screen, there were many avatars. With a closer look, he found that these avatars were the avatars of those who had obtained beads in the competition. The avatars were flashing with different colors. Look carefully, the green avatars are easy to deal with. The yellow ones require more attention. As for the red ones, you need to activate your blue blood to deal with them. What about the black ones? Riaz couldn't help but ask curiously. These red and yellow colors were actually the real-time results obtained through the collection of on-site data, which was then transmitted back to the White Tower in the underwater city. With the help of the White Tower's ability, the calculation was made. If there is a black one, then I will go, Rikyuj said directly. Then, she added, but there's no need for that. We only need to take the 3 beads this time. Then, should I go on stage and challenge a green one? Riaz played with a bead in his hand and thought for a moment. This bead was given to him by the fire cloud evil god at the beginning of the competition. Rikyuj nodded and said, Go. These humans on the surface are all coy, waiting to take advantage of us. Just looking at them makes me angry. The strong will always be strong, momentum is built step by step. There are so many green ones, which one should I choose? Riaz found it difficult to choose. Rikyuj rolled her eyes and suddenly reached out to grab Riaz by the back of his collar. Then she threw him out and said, Choose blindly. He appeared. The first challenger. Prince Riaz of Underwater City. Good job. I didn't expect that the first challenger would be a friend of our humans, a guest from the deep sea. It seems that the transcendents on the surface need to work hard. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you are as nervous as I am. I wonder who this Prince of Underwater City will challenge? Please pay attention to the QR code on the screen, scan the code and enter the guessing activity area. Then, you can choose the student you like, the strong person you like. In short, did they really treat this competition as a large-scale reality show? Chapter 2004. The rule of the challenge was that the challenged party couldn't refuse. That was to say, the target of the challenge was very clear. The teams that had obtained the beads, especially those with 2 or more beads, were the prey of the challengers. Yes, prey. Perhaps the transcendents who had obtained the beads were fierce tigers in the forest, but even the fierce tigers would be outnumbered when there were so many wolves around. Because at this time, people found that there was no rule against repeated challenges. That was to say, the same person who obtained the beads might be challenged repeatedly. Thinking about it this way, the advantage they had at the beginning didn't seem to be an advantage. They might have just become famous, or they might have become the stepping stones of the latecomers without knowing it. They had jumped into a big hole. Of course, if they could hold on while being challenged, it would be a different story. In the end, it was still the fists that spoke. The power conference, this was the stage of power. At the same time, the prince of the undersea city was about to show his power to the humans on the ground. The prince, who still had a childish look on his face, finally chose his opponent at this moment. A hermit from Gaia Mountain of Goguryeo. As the prince of Undersea City named his opponent, everyone's eyes fell on the person who was being challenged. Solitary Cloud, this little guy, is the first one to be challenged. It's really hard on him. Taoist Master 100 Tribulations suddenly revealed a smile on his face. Song Hauran actually thought that Baijia Taoist should be invited to be the commentator for this conference. Baijia Taoist had lived for a very, very long time. According to the legend, Baijia Taoist was called Baijia Taoist because he had gone through 100 tribulations. Of course, 100 tribulations might be exaggerated, but it was enough to prove that this evergreen Taoist had lived for a long time. Living for a long time naturally had its benefit. The most direct one was that he could know a lot of unknown history, and even know many people that the young and middle-aged people didn't know. Song Howren recalled the information about the hermit from Gaia Mountain on the first day of the conference, and thought for a while. This time, the leader of the team from Gaia Mountain of Goguryeo is a Taoist called Solitary Cloud. President, are you an old friend of Solitary Cloud? Not really an old friend. Taoist Master 100 Tribulations chuckled and said, I only drank tea a few times. Goryeo used to be a desolate land of Taoism. Later, someone came to the Middle Earth and learned some Taoist technique. He created a branch of Taoism. This Taoist lone cloud was a rising star on their side. During the Great Tang Dynasty, he had traveled to the land of Kelowna and learned more Tao technique. After returning, he should have completed some of the systems that they had created. That was when we met. How many people have you drunk tea from? Song Howren shook his head inwardly. However, he was certain of one thing at this moment. Judging from the president's tone, it was obvious that he was not too fond of this wild Taoist system in the peninsula. Actually, Solitary Cloud is quite capable. The 100 Tribulation Taoist suddenly said, It's a pity that he was born in the wrong time and place. Otherwise, with his talent, there would be a place for him in the Kelowna Taoist school. What a pity! The words "what a pity" seemed to have predicted the fate of Goguryeo Mountain. At this moment, perhaps because of the premonition, the hermits from Mount Gao did not look too good. Of course, they did their best to keep their expressions as calm as possible. However, everyone's eyes were focused on them at this moment. Solitary Cloud, let me go for the first battle. You have the strongest magic power among us. Don't waste your energy in the meeting. This prince of the underwater city doesn't look that strong. Their so-called magic energy weapons should only be more advanced and more powerful than modern human weapons. The Taoist named Solitary Cloud pondered for a moment before finally nodding. His breathing was a little chaotic at the moment. During the battle just now, he had personally taken the 2 pearls for Mount Gao, but he had also used up a lot of energy at the same time. He did need some time to recover. Be careful. If necessary. As he spoke, Solitary Cloud suddenly stuffed a small bottle into the hand of the person who had volunteered for the battle. Do as you see fit, Nangong. I will. The man named Nangong stood up and said in a deep voice, The land of Kelowna has always looked down on us. Today, I'll let the Taoists of Kelowna see if my sword is weak. Nangong leaped up and landed steadily on the stage like a flying dragon. He stood with his hands behind his back. I'm Nangong Do. I'm here to accept the challenge. Riaz felt that it was a little embarrassing to be thrown out of the stage. Look at him. He walked on air and had an extraordinary aura. However, Riaz couldn't think of a good way to greet this man who was wearing a rough sackcloth and had a sword at his waist. He could only learn from what he had learned from the human network in the past few days. He cupped his fists and said, Hello, I'm Riaz. Today, friendship comes first, competition comes second. On the final stage, you only have to fight for first place. Friendship is never obtained through words. Take this. As he spoke, Nangong Do swung the sword at his waist like lightning. In an instant, sword lights flashed on the stage. At the same time, Nangong Do leaped high into the air, and the long sword in his hand emitted a dazzling lightning. A combination of martial arts and Taoist technique. This is a good idea, but the power is a little lacking. On the Ichian stage, the evil god of Fire Cloud nodded. Even the things created in this small place have their merit. Shinryu of Kelowna only glanced at him. It's such a waste that this old guy didn't give me a microphone to explain. Riaz seemed to be completely stunned. Facing Nangong Do's terrifying attack, he didn't seem to be able to react at all. He didn't move at all. If you don't dodge, then don't blame me. With an angry roar, the sword flashing with lightning instantly slashed at Riaz's shoulder. With a loud boom, lightning flashed everywhere. More than half of the stage was surging with lightning snakes. However, the lightning sword only slashed at Riaz's shoulder and didn't cut into it. A blue light screen happened to block Riaz's shoulder. Nangong Do's eyes narrowed when he saw that his attack was ineffective. He instantly performed a set of sword technique. Lightning flashed, and the lightning-infused sword slashed at various parts of Riaz's body like a storm. However, no matter how fast his sword was, every slash was blocked by a small blue light screen around Riaz's body. Finally, after performing a full set of sword techniques, Nangong Do could only put his sword away and secretly adjust his breathing. "Do you only know how to hide in this turtle shell?" Nangong Do yelled in a deep voice. He couldn't stand the frustration of not being able to break through this defense no matter how he attacked. Riaz stuttered, "No, it's just that I have a hard time choosing. I can't think of how to defeat you." "Sorry, I meant how to fight you." Riaz really had a hard time choosing right now. After going on stage, using the mysterious necklace's ability to connect directly with the underwater city's White Tower, the White Tower calculated every attack of this Gamma Mountain swordsman. Almost every time Nangong Do attacked, the White Tower provided Riaz with dozens of plans. He felt like his eyes were going blurry. He didn't know which plan to use, so he simply activated the magic barrier and let Nangong Do attack. After all, the magic barrier could last forever as long as there was enough magic barrier. It was also environmentally friendly in the past, when he awakened the blue blood power but didn't inherit the control of the White Tower. He didn't need to think too much about it. Now that the underwater city's emperor was asleep, the White Tower was directly controlled by him and Lyoga. He wasn't used to it. "You idiot, don't you know how to give orders and only provide the best plan?" The voice of the underwater cities which instantly exploded in Riaz's mind. This underwater city's prince opened his mouth and muttered, "Didn't we come to the surface to seek peaceful coexistence? If we beat him up, we'll offend him. If you don't even have the strength to beat him up, who would be willing to coexist peacefully with you?" "Okay," Riaz muttered. The small mental black room's communication only lasted for a moment. Riaz's attention returned to the stage and said seriously, "Mr. Nangong, I'm going to counterattack, you have to be careful." After saying that, Riaz pulled out a small round stick that was as long as a palm from his waist. He held it like he was holding a sword. In an instant, a blue light beam shot out from the round stick, accompanied by a buzzing sound. At this moment, Riaz took a deep breath and slowly assumed a posture. Underwater City also had its own sword skills, but they were all taught by the army's combat sword skills, Lyoga. Damn! It can't be wrong. Lightsaber! This is origin power. So it is. Anakin Riaz. Prince Riaz's lightsaber is the same style, including 998. If you insta-kill him now, you'll get a Jedi flashcard. What happened outside could not affect Nangong Do, who was inside the stage. If the outside world could affect him so easily, he would not have been able to reach where he was today. "You also use a sword?" Nangong Do's gaze froze. Riaz nodded and said, "I've been learning for a month, please enlighten me." Nangong Do suddenly smiled, he sneered. In a split second, the Taoist mana and the martial artist's true power intertwined with each other in a spiral fashion within Nangong Do's body. The violent power immediately erupted, and Nangong Do instantly split into 7 figures on the stage. Every figure seemed to be him. The 7 figures stabbed out at the same time. Prince Riaz's gaze flickered, and the magic energy lightsaber in his hand stabbed out at the 3rd figure on the left. What caught people off guard was that the magic energy lightsaber in the hands of the underwater city prince instantly shot out 30 to 40 meters long. What kind of sword skill is this? With Nangong Do's furious roar, the other 6 figures instantly disappeared. The 3rd figure on the left, which was his main body, dangerously placed his sword in front of Nangong Do's chest, blocking the tip of the lightsaber. "I'm going to attack, be careful." The 30 to 40 meter long magic energy lightsaber instantly slashed on the stage. The terrifying heat contained in the lightsaber instantly cut the floor like tofu, and the buzzing sound was even more terrifying than the sword hum of a swordsman. Could this magic energy lightsaber directly melt a person's body if they accidentally touched it? The more Nangong Do fought, the more shocked he became. He did not believe that this underwater city prince had only learned sword skills for a month. This guy was clearly a terrifying swordsman, but he could always attack and suppress Nangong Do's moves as if he could predict the future. The more Nangong Do fought, the more depressed he became. Under this predictive mode, he could not even use 60% of his strength. However, the changes on the stage were like clouds to people who did not understand sword skills. Only people who had a certain level of understanding of power could understand the strangeness and horror of the underwater city prince's attacks. Mr. Mingy, this is a very terrifying martial Dao realm, but it doesn't seem like it. Could it be that the underwater city prince has the ability to predict the future? Maybe it's an advanced technique for detection? Just like how the Tower Master of the Radiance Tower once wanted to develop the Laplacian demon technique. By grasping all the variables, one can grasp the dynamics of the future. But even the Tower Master of the Radiance Tower failed. Could this be the advanced realm of sword immortals, the legendary sword heart illumination? It doesn't seem like it. Did you see that? This underwater city prince's movements don't seem to be of his own volition, but something is driving his body to move. He's not a true martial artist. This is an external force. Fire Cloud Evil God suddenly said. At this moment, Kelowna Shinryu frowned, and then her eyes turned golden. In an instant, the underwater city prince's clothes became almost transparent in Long Shirua's eyes. However, under this set of clothes, there was a seemingly thin silver-gray skin-tight battle suit. Did Lord Long discover something? Fire Cloud Evil God suddenly asked in a low voice. He felt a slight change in Kelowna Shinryu. Kelowna Shinryu muttered to herself for a moment, and then slowly said, "The underwater city has a mysterious white tower. This white tower is the crystallization of all the wisdom of the underwater city civilization over countless years. This underwater city prince is wearing a battlesuit that can be controlled by the white tower. Through real-time calculations, the White Tower predicted Nangong Do's attack method in advance, and then gave feedback." Artificial intelligence? Fire Cloud Evil God couldn't help but frown. Kelowna Shinryu shook her head and said, "It's not artificial intelligence. The people of the underwater city call this the wisdom of their ancestors. The White Tower of the underwater city is the final destination of the souls of the people of the underwater city after they die. You can think of it as Nangong Do not fighting this prince, but facing the wisdom of countless ancestors of the underwater city. It's like you make a move and then thousands of experts or even more are thinking about how to break your attack together. Is this considered cheating?" Fire Cloud Evil God couldn't help but smile bitterly. The feeling of countless people studying and breaking a move was really uncomfortable for a martial artist. Long Shirua said indifferently, "If I don't say, who will know? Even if they know, what can they do? This is originally an extraordinary power that belongs to the underwater city." Fire Cloud Evil God shook his head, and then suddenly asked curiously, "Lord Long, where did you learn this? It stands to reason that even the agency, as the first party to come into contact with the underwater city, can't find out so many secrets." "Of course I have my sources," Kelowna Shinryu snorted and said, "Shinryu, why don't you be the Shinryu?" Fire Cloud Evil God opened his mouth with a strange expression. Did this guy eat a bucket of gunpowder today? Another special source of information? A guy like you who only knows how to play games at home all day? Fire Cloud Evil God finally shook his head, glancing at the stage, and suddenly said, "It's time to decide the winner." The magic energy lightsaber suddenly pierced through Nangong Do's shoulder. The hermit swordsman from Mount Gamma screamed, and his body was directly pushed to the edge of the stage by the explosively long lightsaber, and was about to be directly pushed out. But just as Nangong Do's body was about to fall off the stage, he suddenly stomped his foot into the floor. Then, Nangong Do roared, and seemed to stuff something into his mouth and bit it. Then, wild lightning burst out from Nangong Do's body, and a bolt of lightning directly shot into the sky. At the same time, Nangong Do used his palm as a blade, and actually cut the lightsaber in half. His entire body was bathed in a faint blue light, and his aura instantly increased by several times. Whoosh! Nangong Do's figure instantly disappeared. The moment he reappeared, he was already half a meter away from Riaz, and punched the chest of the underwater city prince. The magic energy shield directly flashed, but the punch instantly sent the underwater city prince flying. The magic energy shield trembled, and Riaz flipped in the air in a slightly awkward manner before landing on the stage. He subconsciously looked back, but there was still a distance of about a palm's distance, and he almost fell off the stage. Riaz couldn't help but be surprised. The power of the magic energy shield wasn't constant, and it would automatically adjust the output of magic energy according to the strength of the attack. A good magic energy could be used more efficiently, but Nangong Do's punch suddenly increased in power, and even surpassed the strength of the magic energy shield. At the same time, Nangong Do's originally green avatar suddenly turned yellow. This thing. Kelowna's Shinryu frowned. Didn't that so-and-so take it out, but didn't have time to use it? The legendary warrior, Ahau Ma. Fire Cloud Evil God suddenly said with a serious expression, "It seems that something bad has leaked into this convention. From Fire Cloud Evil God's point of view, you always have to pay for what you get. A medicine like this that could suddenly give a person great power must have terrible side effects. Just like some martial artists' explosive abilities, it would often cause great damage to the martial artist's vitality, and even directly kill them." Chapter 2005. Transcendents had very good eyesight, and many of them had better eyesight than telescope. Therefore, when Nangong Do took out something and put it in his mouth, many transcendents' hearts skipped a beat. In fact, this kind of psychological activity had existed in their hearts since the legendary ABA warrior, Hao Ma, had failed to take the potion. But at that time, many people still had a trace of hope in their hearts. Perhaps Hao Ma had coincidentally met the legendary secret apothecary who was about to leave, and shamelessly paid an astonishing price to buy a tear of God. Yes, that must be it. However, when Nangong Do used the tear of God in front of everyone, they knew that they shouldn't be relying on luck. The legendary secret apothecary, the witch Heptalum, had sold the tear of God to other people, many people. The transcendents who had the tear of God suddenly realized a problem. Should they use the tear of God they had in their hands during the meeting? If they didn't use it, but if others used it and won, they would be the ones who suffered a loss. If they used it, others would also use it, and everyone's strength would increase by the same amount. In the end, it was no different from not using it. If everyone agreed not to use it, then what was the point of spending so much money to buy the tear of God? If they used it, then everyone would use it together, but the result would not change. Whether they used it or not, it seemed to be a big trap. The key was that when this trap appeared, they willingly jumped into it. You could say that Master Pansy was scamming people, but the effects of the tear of God were amazing. It was definitely worth it. You could say that he wasn't scamming people, but now it was possible that everyone would have a copy. What, you have the tear of God? What a coincidence, I have it too. Just like that. Damn it, we were actually tricked by this evil secret apothecary. But obviously, it was too late to say anything now, because they had already fallen into the trap, and they couldn't get out. Bang. That wicked witch, give me back my life. They really lost their lives. They seemed to have realized something. On the stands, a young man and a young woman were sitting there. They had been sitting there all this while, and among so many extraordinary organizations and media, they did not attract anyone's attention. Boss Luo was talking to Miss Maid. The servant girl chuckled and didn't care. It seems that your reaction is a little slow. Perhaps it was because the name Pansy had too much credibility in the world of secret pharmacists. There was no problem with the secret medicine of the pansy. The effect was very good and it was worth the money. Presumably, next time there would be people willing to buy it like it was nothing. Boss Luo couldn't help but think of something interesting. It was said that some cute and silly people would help others count the money after being sold. It seemed that Miss Maid was the one who sold him. Master, when do you plan to complete Miss Zijuan's request? Boss Luo suddenly became lazy. He reached out and lifted a lock of Miss Maid's hair. He said softly, "Can't wait any more?" How could that be? Miss Maid's eyelashes moved slightly. She smiled and said, "If it's not so fast, I want to see Eleanor." "You want to wake her up?" Boss Luo asked curiously. Miss Maid shook her head. "On the contrary, I don't want to wake her up. She still has a lot of holidays." Boss Luo didn't ask. He patted the back of her hand and said casually, "Don't scare Miss Lancelot. After all, I haven't officially met Eleanor yet." At the same time, on the stage, Nangong Do's momentum was still rising. Facing Nangong Do, who had been promoted to a yellow name monster, Riaz's attention was much more focused. Although he occasionally complained to Lyoga every day, he trusted each other from the bottom of his heart. When Rikuga said that as long as it was an opponent with a green avatar, Riaz did not feel too nervous. It was because of this trust that when Nangong Do turned into a yellow-named monster, he immediately focused on the fight. Because of his focus and caution, Riaz even activated part of his blue blood power. This should be a strategy to deal with a red-name monster. The blue blood power was a very special power. After this power was activated, his brain activity would greatly increase. At the same time, his sensitivity would be suppressed, and his rationality would continue to increase as the blue blood power was activated. His reaction, judgment, and even temperament would unconsciously change because of the blue blood. Strictly speaking, Riaz, who activated the blue blood power, was like a different person. Riaz actually didn't like this blue blood state. It even made him think of the tragedy that happened to Louis XXXIX. A trace of pure blue flashed in Riaz's pupils. At this time, Riaz pulled out the second magical lightsaber from his belt. The two lightsabers, one in front and one behind, were in the posture of the underwater city's military. What Riaz didn't know was that because he took out the second lightsaber, some people had crazily spammed some strange words in the online world. Dual sword flow. Trash Kirito finally remembered his main account. Trash UW. Something like that. Nangong Do wasn't too surprised that the prince of the underwater city took out the second lightsaber and used the dual sword flow formation. He was in the tier of God state, and at this time, his strength was rapidly increasing and his confidence was unprecedentedly strong. With that punch, he had already noticed that the magical shield of the prince of the underwater city could be shaken. Therefore, he believed that as long as the power of his attack increased, he could directly break the shield of the prince of the underwater city. This prince's body must be quite weak. The victory or defeat would be decided by the next attack. Without saying much, Nangong Do directly poured all his power into the next attack. The flashing lightning around him suddenly turned into a pool of lightning that spread across the entire stage. Nangong Do stomped his foot, and the entire stage instantly split in half. At this moment, a lightning dragon rose from the crack. Seeing this, Riaz took a deep breath, lowered his body, and ran like a leopard. The lightsaber in his hands swung repeatedly, splitting the lightning that shot at him. He swam in the huge pool of lightning, perfectly dodging and splitting the dense lightning strikes. Fast. In everyone's eyes, the prince of the underwater city reacted abnormally fast at this time. His movements were also fast, but in fact, his speed wasn't that fast. It was precision. The real reason was precision, as if he had done countless calculations. Riaz was like a dancer on a tightrope. Suddenly, the prince of the underwater city jumped up, and his whole body met the terrifying lightning dragon released by Nangong Do. He even jumped into the mouth of the Thunder Lord Dragon, allowing the Thunder Lord Dragon to swallow him whole. "You want to die? Then don't blame me!" Nangong Do roared angrily, and he was like an arrow on a bow. This lightning dragon was a forbidden technique, and Nangong Do had never used its full power since it was created. Now, with the help of the Tear of God, he could finally unleash the full power of this forbidden technique. Lightning Dragon. Twist. Nangong Do swung his longsword, and the lightning dragon instantly twisted its body. It circled, shrunk, trying to use the terrifying lightning power in the lightning dragon to crush this prince of the underwater city. In the end, the lightning dragon suddenly collapsed, and a huge lightning ball instantly formed in the sky above the stage. The light was enough to illuminate an area of several kilometers. Many transcendents were shocked by Nangong Do's attack. The world was so big, and there were no transcendents. If one didn't see them for themselves, how would one know if they were strong or not? Moreover, this was an era where the world's spirit energy was rejuvenated, and newborns could even give birth to children with superpowers. In this era, thanks to the surge in the world's vitality, transcendents could even feel that they were improving every day. However, would the prince of the underwater city lose just like that? If the prince of the underwater city was annihilated by this lightning ball, would a war between the humans on the surface and the underwater city break out? Nangong, you're too impulsive. In the stands, among the hermits from the Gamma Mountain, a soft sigh suddenly came. He was the rare genius that the 100 Tribulations Taoist had mentioned, the hermit Solitary Cloud, who had perfected the Gwuli Taoist arts by himself and called himself the New System. No, the prince of the underwater city isn't dead. A sudden scream came from the audience. The huge lightning ball was broken by a blue flash, and at the same time, a figure rapidly fell toward Nangong Do. It was the prince of the underwater city. At this moment, Riaz was holding two lightsabers, one in front and one in back. His face was as calm as the calm ocean. The moment he landed, Riaz tapped his feet and shot toward Nangong Do like a sharp arrow. The lightsabers in his hands slashed toward Nangong Do like rain. At this moment, Nangong Do had used up all his strength, and he hadn't recovered his new strength yet. Even with the Tear of God state, which increased his strength to the limit, he couldn't withstand the fact that he had just used up all his bullets and hadn't had time to reload yet. He could only use the lightsabers in his hands to defend himself. However, the lightsabers in Prince Riaz's hands suddenly turned crimson, and the flame-like red light illuminated the two of them in an instant. The two lightsabers were still attacking fiercely without stopping. Their figures moved crazily on the stage, and in the end, Nangong Do was forced to the edge of the stage. At this moment, Nangong Do finally recovered from the big move. Just as he was about to counterattack, he saw Prince Riaz look at Nangong Do's lightsabers at the same time. In an instant, the heat of the lightsabers directly melted and cut this ancient sword apart. Nangong Do was shocked. At this moment, Riaz lifted the lightsaber, spun around, and knocked Nangong Do's chest with the lightsaber. The heavy blow finally sent the hermit of Mount Jiaju flying and landing outside the stage. Nangong Do's body directly crashed into the railing at the bottom of the stands. He looked at the broken sword in his hand in shock. The power from the Tear of God still hadn't dissipated, and he even recovered to his peak state. However, he lost. I didn't lose. My feet haven't landed yet. His body was only knocked into the railing of the stands. His feet didn't land on the ground. The Transcendents looked on coldly. This roar was a traditional art of the Goryeo Peninsula. I didn't lose. As if he was possessed, Nangong Do roared and was about to charge onto the stage again with the broken sword. At this moment, Kelowna's Shinryu suddenly snorted and flicked his finger. A golden light flashed, and Nangong Do's leg was instantly penetrated by the golden light. He lost control and fell to the ground. Damn it! I told you! I didn't lose. Nangong Do endured the pain and propped himself up. On the stands, Long Shirua didn't waste time and raised her hand again. At this moment, a calm voice sounded, Jiaju Mountain admits defeat for this round. As he spoke, a pearl shot toward Riaz, who was on the stage. The person who shot the pearl was none other than the leader of the hermits from Gaia Mountain, the man with the Taoist name, Solitary Cloud. Then, Solitary Cloud reached out and grabbed the enraged Nangong Do from the stage and threw him onto the seat. Solitary Cloud cupped his hands and said calmly, His Highness Undersea City's Prince's sword technique is brilliant. Solitary Cloud is impressed. Also, thank you for showing mercy. Nangong Do isn't skilled enough, so he deserves to lose. In the end, Riaz showed mercy and didn't cut open Nangong Do's shoulder with the lightsaber. Powerful people could see it clearly and knew what Solitary Cloud meant. At this moment, Nangong Do calmed down, but his face was pale, and his eyes were filled with shame and discomfort. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breath, but the terror of God was still there, and there were at least 8 to 9 minutes left. Thinking that the terror of God, which was worth 30 years of his life, was wasted, Nangong Do was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. On the Qian platform, Fire Cloud Evil God had an as expected look on his face. Didn't I tell you? How can this kind of medicine that can greatly increase one's power not have any side effects? Look, the bad karma is coming. Kelowna's Shinryu. Long Shirua didn't bother to pay attention to him. She knew why Nangong Do spat out blood, but she didn't bother to explain. These shameless people on the peninsula even said that the Kelowna's Shinryu was theirs. They deserved it if they spat out blood. On the stage, after Riaz took the bead from Taoist the Lone Cloud, he immediately exited the blue blood state. He returned to his original self and put away the lightsaber at his waist. At this time, there was a lot of applause from the surrounding stands. Those extraordinary powerhouses in this challenge saw the demeanor of this prince of Seabed City. Since Riaz didn't kill anyone, he won a lot of favor from them. F***ck. So it's like this. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly came from the media area. The voice was so excited that it was easy for those transcendents with sharp eyes and ears to notice its existence. When some of the transcendents cast their gazes on the media person, they saw that he had hurriedly stretched out his body with a microphone in his hand and said excitedly, I don't know what to say. Anyway, you'll know when you see our channel. I'll upload the video that I just took. Soon, the video of Riaz slashing Nangong Do with his two-blade lightsaber appeared on the internet. This video was smooth and clear, comparable to a blockbuster with special effect. Even the audience who had just watched the live broadcast couldn't help but exclaim again. But things weren't that simple. The media person who attracted everyone's attention because of his exclamation turned on his microphone and said, I'm a photography enthusiast. Since this undersea city prince used a lightsaber in the competition, I couldn't help but use some light trace photography technique. Anyway, you'll know when you see the final product. This is the light trace of His Highness when he appeared in the lightning ball. That was a picture. In the picture, it was the last time the undersea city prince waved the lightsaber. Then, they saw the trace of the two red lightsabers all the way. It was a picture, a portrait. The red light and shadow depicted the smiling face of His Highness Undersea City Prince's fiancée, Miss Lyoga. The girl in the light and shadow portrait was gentle and quiet at this moment, agile and moving with a flower-like smile. The Witch of Undersea City in the stands suddenly stood up and looked at Riaz on the stage. The Undersea City Prince stood there. He stood in the middle of that beautiful smile. Chapter 2006. Young Prince Transcendent. The Prince of Undersea City had everything in the dreams of young people. Not only did he defeat his opponent beautifully, but he even painted with sword light and integrated his love for his fiancée into his swordsmanship that was like a dance. This implicit feeling should have been hidden quietly, but it was displayed in front of the world because of a photography enthusiast. The implicit and elegant love of the Prince of Undersea City crazily absorbed the hearts of thousands of girls who were sitting in front of the screen and watching the live broadcast at this moment. Even the attention rate of the Prince of Undersea City instantly surpassed the vampire girl of the Magician Association, who had been popular because of her cute persona in the past few days. He became the new center of attention among the young people. Not to mention a woman, even a man like me can't help but have a girl's heart. This Undersea City's prince is really F***king outstanding. Old Q exclaimed in amazement at this time. But in this craze, Auntie Rin seemed to have a different idea. She frowned and muttered, "Why do I feel that this prince looks like he's also in a daze? Maybe the prince didn't think that his hidden feelings could be discovered?" Old Q casually found a reason. Auntie Rin shook her head, then silently liked on the official account of Undersea City's network. "Can't Auntie have a girl's heart?" Auntie Ren's heart also exploded. After this battle, the Prince of Undersea City didn't seem to intend to continue the challenge. As for Taoist, Solitary Cloud, from Gayuo Mountain, who had lost a game and now only had one bead left, he didn't seem to have the intention to immediately fight again and turn the tables. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Riaz slowly returned to his original stand. No one chose to challenge the Prince of Undersea City at this time. They probably knew that after such a battle full of dog food, they would be scolded if they challenged the Prince of Undersea City again. Being beaten wasn't terrible. Transcendence actually disliked being scolded the most. His Majesty the Emperor is quite diligent. In the corner of the stands, Boss Luo smiled. He looked at Riaz on the martial arts stage, then looked at the Witch of Undersea City on the other side of the stands. As if he couldn't hold it in, he took out his camera and secretly took a picture of this scene. Boss Luo hadn't picked up his camera for a long time, so he couldn't help but take a few more pictures. When the photos were out, Boss Luo picked one and sent it out with a wave of his hand. In the end, the photo was sent to the White Tower at the bottom of the sea, where it quietly fell into the sleeping quarters of Emperor Louis XXXIX. Riaz, who had returned to his seat, looked at Lyoga anxiously. Underwater cities which, Lyoga, sat there expressionlessly as if nothing had happened. "Lyoga, sit down." Lyoga said indifferently, "The whole world is watching. Don't just stand there. You are now representing Undersea City. Pay attention to your image." "Okay." Riaz nodded and sat down. With a smile on his face, he welcomed the gaze of the world. "Lyoga, actually, just now I know you don't know. Underwater cities which said indifferently, I taught you swordsmanship. How can I not know?" "Then you," Lyoga said faintly, "yes, I taught you this swordsmanship. How can I not know, but I also didn't know. Riaz, do you know, this is the swordsmanship created by Louis." "I don't know, I never knew, I always didn't know." "Louis, will he wake up?" Underwater cities which lowered her head at this time. Her hands tightly grasped her pants. There were a few drops of wet tears on her pants. Riaz just remembered that Lyoga didn't show any trace of sadness since the Battle of Undersea City. She indifferently dealt with everything in Undersea City after Louis XXXIX fell into a deep sleep. Reconstruction, planning until the landing on the overworld. There was no time for her to calm down and think. Such a short time was not even enough for Lyoga, who was responsible for the future of the entire Undersea City, to have a short private time. There will be a way. Riaz took a deep breath at this time, plucked up his courage, put his arm around Lyoga's shoulder and said softly, "There must be a way to wake His Majesty up. If there is no other way, I will look for the black card, no matter what the price is." Lyoga's body suddenly stiffened, and then she muttered, "My face, for now, I will lend it to your shoulder." This girl, really, Riaz couldn't help but smile. "Okay, I asked you to lend me your face. He patted Leoga's shoulder and said softly. Also, don't think of that siren at this time. I was just wondering if Helen would also see this scene on TV. I'm dead. At this time, Undersea City's prince suddenly felt like he was tricked by Emperor Louis XXXIX. Looking at the scene of Undersea City's prince hugging his fiancée, many people smiled. Are you touched? If I were you, I would be touched too. Even many powerhouses who were still single couldn't help but think in their hearts, if I could be so romantic in the past, I would have a house full of children and grandchildren already, right? Who doesn't have a childhood love? Two innocent young people, but they still say that they were young back then? Just when everyone was immersed in this beautiful scene, even the irritable Kelowna Shinryu quieted down a lot as if he was poked. There was still one person who was not touched. That person was the hermit Nangong Do from Gamma Mountain. He, who had just woken up, directly spat out a mouthful of blood after learning about this matter. After receiving a critical hit of 10,000 points, he fainted again. At this time, the people from the Kelowna administration sent a group of people to quickly go to the martial arts arena. They were here to repair the broken martial arts arena. The broken martial arts arena was now being repaired at a remarkable speed. It seemed that, in about 10 minutes, the conference could be restarted. In fact, even many of the 12 knights, including the Knight mechanism, didn't know one thing. That was, Lancelot was actually a person who loved cleanliness and even liked to take a bath very much. Her clothes were always spotless, and her room was always as tidy as a model room. She even had obsessive-compulsive disorder. Even the cups and pills that she gave to Her Majesty had to be placed in a fixed pattern. Of course, the Queen probably had a deep understanding of Lancelot's stubbornness. For Lancelot, misophobia and obsessive-compulsive disorder seemed to be innate. Therefore, it was easy to imagine how conflicted she felt when she was caught by Farrell. She was clearly not participating in the battle, but she was inexplicably trained for an entire night. Her entire body was dirty. She couldn't even express it. Only at this moment, in the resting room of the spectator's stand, the shower room belonged to her. Lancelot was instantly intoxicated by the feeling of the hot water flowing all over her body, as if countless pairs of white hands were gently caressing her body. The moment the water flowed through the bud, she was even a little reluctant to leave this place. In fact, since entering the venue, the youngest 12th knight, a female knight, had already taken a shower for more than an hour. The commotion outside was very loud, but Lancelot was still reluctant to leave this place. She had already completed the Queen's order, and it wasn't time for her to care about the results of the power conference. Suddenly, Lancelot's gaze froze, and she felt that someone had broken into the shower room. Almost at the moment when she felt it, Lancelot directly picked up the towel and covered her body. The shower wasn't turned off, and under the cover of the sound of running water, Lancelot silently chanted the elven incantation, and the exclusive weapon that belonged to the 12th knight Lancelot directly appeared in her hand. A black long sword. Controlling the magic sword in her hand, Lancelot directly pierced through the door of the shower room, and the door was instantly torn apart. At this time, the black magic sword pointed directly at a beautiful woman with long blonde hair and blue eyes. She had seen this woman before, when she was in the British Fog City Theatre. This woman seemed to know Her Majesty the Queen. But at this time, this woman's hand was obviously holding the treasure of the British royal family, the ceremonial sword Catinat. She was careless. Lancelot was secretly alarmed. Before she came in, she had set up multiple enchantments to prevent people from bumping into this shower room. Catinat was the precious treasure of the British royal family, so she naturally couldn't directly take it with her when taking a shower. She could only place it outside the shower room, but at this time, it had already fallen into the hands of this blonde woman. At this time, facing the stab of the magic sword in Lancelot's hand, the blonde woman holding the ceremonial sword, Catinat, simply waved her hand. The precious ceremonial sword directly hit Lancelot's magic sword. Lancelot, who was afraid that it would damage the ceremonial sword, couldn't help but be shocked and hurriedly retracted her strength. However, a huge force came from Catinat and directly hit her back. Lancelot flew back to the place where she was drenched in the rain. The splashing water once again drenched her body, but this time, it was separated by a pure white bath towel. What a perverted performance! The blonde woman said indifferently, I knew that your nature is like this. Lancelot was a little confused when she heard this, but she gritted her teeth and quickly stood up again. Her body even showed the mark of an elf. She wanted to complete the armor of heritage here and take back the ceremonial sword. I didn't come here to fight with you, the blonde woman said indifferently. The blonde woman said indifferently. She held the ceremonial sword and placed it flat on her palm. In an instant, the ceremonial sword glowed faintly. You can actually activate the power of Catinat. Lancelot couldn't help but blurt out, Do you have the blood of the royal family? I don't, but your queen does, the blonde woman said indifferently. This is the spirit she sent to Catinat. Even though I don't know why you brought Katner here from Britain, it's obvious that the real reason you brought it here isn't what you think it is. It's not what I know. Lancelot frowned. The queen gave her the precious ceremonial sword and brought it to the Forbidden City. Wasn't it to use the ceremonial sword to force Farrell to participate in the power conference and win a place in the board of directors for the Unite mechanism? Originally, Lancelot had felt that the queen's order was a bit risky, because no one knew if Farrell would still abide by the knight's oath from back then. However, the true meaning wasn't to subdue Farrell. You can rest now. The blonde woman suddenly shook her head and then flicked her finger. You should sleep, no matter which one it is, you're the same. What? Lancelot felt his mind go blank for a moment, and then he slowly fell to the ground. A faint smile appeared on the blonde woman's face. She even squinted her eyes. Teacher Eleanor, you shouldn't have chosen to take a vacation in this subworld. You can't blame me for this. As she spoke, the blonde woman, Miss Maid, threw out the ceremonial sword in her hand. The ritual sword was suspended in the air, then it fell straight down and finally stood upright on the ground. A gem on the hilt of the ritual sword released a ray of light at this time. In an instant, a graceful and energetic old woman appeared in front of Miss Maid. It was Her Majesty, the Queen of Britain. I'm still wondering how long it will take for you to activate the gem in Catinat. Teacher, long time no see. The Queen's figure smiled. Teacher, didn't make things difficult for Lancelot, did you? Miss Maid said indifferently. How do you know that I'll appear? The Queen laughed. After all, the years of learning from Teacher weren't in vain. I vaguely remember that Teacher said that there are not many things in Britain that are worth your effort. This ceremonial sword is barely the same. So I thought that if I send the ceremonial sword to a place outside of Britain, Teacher might be able to understand what I mean. What a naughty student. Miss Maid chuckled. The Queen said softly, I haven't heard Teacher's reproach for so many years, it's very kind. Miss Maid said indifferently, Catinat is the inheritance of Britain's glory, are you willing to part with it? The Queen smiled and said calmly, If Britain ends up as a mediocre place in the future Transcendence generation, it will only be a joke if we still cling to our former glory. Besides, I can't bring the so-called glory into my tomb. What do you want? Miss Maid's voice became more indifferent. The Queen put away the admiration on her face and said seriously, I hope that the Unite mechanism can stand firmly in the board of directors after the conference. The Queen didn't mention how many beads to seize, nor did she mention how many rounds to win. Her request was to let the Unite mechanism stand firmly in the board of directors of the Transcendence Association in the future. This wasn't a simple request. A simple request wouldn't make the Queen of Britain take out the royal family's ceremonial sword, Catinat. Miss Maid stared at the Queen and didn't say anything. The Queen didn't avoid this gaze. She was calm. Miss Maid pondered for a moment and said slowly, Elizabeth, You should understand that since you took the initiative to make a deal with me, our relationship will no longer be the same as before. Think carefully." Her Majesty said softly, "I've been thinking about it for a long time. As a student, there will be a day when I need to leave my teacher and face the outside world alone. From the moment I graduated, will I be closer to you, teacher?" Miss Maid nodded directly and then said indifferently, "I think my master will like this ceremonial sword." The Queen sighed slowly and nodded. "I think that Mr. will also like it. After all, in my opinion, that Mr. is a very particular gentleman. Besides, that Mr. is really a good match for you, teacher." Miss Maid said indifferently, "Now that things have come to this, even flattering words won't work, Elizabeth." "How can that be?" The Queen smiled gently. "I really think so. You should take your medicine, Elizabeth." Miss Maid waved her hand directly. The Queen's figure disappeared instantly. Chapter 2007. Later, Lancelot woke up slowly. But she was not in the shower room, but on the bench outside. The water stains on her body had dried up, and even her hair had become dry and loose. Lancelot suddenly sat up with the towel. However, there was no trace of the mysterious blonde woman in the shower. As for the royal ceremonial sword, the ceremonial sword was still there, standing quietly not far from her at this moment. Lancelot walked over carefully until she held the ceremonial sword in her hand. Her face was still full of confusion. That person, that blonde woman, what was her purpose? Since the other party could knock her down quietly, it meant that she had the ability to kill her easily, but she didn't do so and didn't even take away the ceremonial sword. This place was too dangerous, and she couldn't stay here for a long time. Without the Queen's order, she didn't have to participate in the power conference at all. Farrell also didn't watch from the side, so she could take the opportunity to leave and send the ceremonial sword back to the British border safely. This female knight, who was obsessed with cleanliness and liked to take a bath, started to plan the route to leave without saying anything. However, at that moment, a phone call from Her Majesty the Queen was directly connected to her phone. "Lancelot, are you interested in helping Gareth? I see that he is alone and seems to be suffering. Why don't you stay and help him?" Although Her Majesty's tone sounded as if she was negotiating with him, Lancelot understood that he had no reason to refuse. The female knight, who also swore her loyalty in front of the ceremonial sword, directly said in a low voice, "I understand, Your Majesty." Boss Luo gave Miss Maid a lot of authority, and even part of the bargaining power. He actually tried to give the Black Soul envoys a limited bargaining power before, but he failed. In fact, from a certain point of view, Nan Xiaonan called the Lady Boss before actually wasn't inappropriate. She was called Miss Maid, but her authority was indeed the standard Lady Boss. "Katina?" Boss Luo blinked. He knew that business had come knocking, and it seemed to be a good business. Of course, since the shop had always delivered the goods first, the ceremonial sword was still in Lancelot's hands. This was what Miss Maid told Boss Luo when she came back and sat beside him. "The quality of Faith spiritual equipment like we Catinat is pretty good. I saw that the other party's request wasn't too high, so I decided to agree." Miss Maid looked into Boss Luo's eyes and said, "Of course, it's up to you, Master." Boss Luo smiled casually. "You know I won't reject you." Miss Maid's eyes brightened slightly. "Is it okay if I want to complete Miss Zijuan's request now?" Boss Luo gently rubbed her fingers and said softly, "I also know that you won't ruin my mood, right? You will know when is the best time to act. Then wait a little longer." Miss Maid looked calm. "My master." The martial arts arena was repaired in less than 8 minutes. Of course, it was repaired with supernatural power. Anyway, supernatural power was no longer a secret, and this level of supernatural power didn't need to be secretive. But who would be the next to challenge him? The atmosphere was tense again. To everyone's surprise, when the announcement was made, a figure stepped onto the newly renovated arena, and this challenger was none other than the hermit from Mount Gaia, who had suffered a crushing defeat in the previous battle. It was a middle-aged Taoist wearing a black Taoist robe, with a jade flute in his hand. Solitary Cloud. The leader of the hermits in Mount Jiayan, the genius who led the transcendence in the peninsula all by himself, Taoist Lone Cloud stood on the martial arts platform without any sadness or joy, as if he had completely integrated into the environment. I didn't expect that there would be such a profound Taoist on this small peninsula. On one of the stands, Senior Yang Taizi exclaimed in a low voice. He didn't stay with so many sects of the Tao Association, but chose to stay in an inconspicuous place. With Mr. Song's group of weird guys, he couldn't sneak into the territory of the Taoist Association, could he? Cui Ziyuan? Mr. Song suddenly nodded. I've heard of this name. He's a figure from the Tang dynasty, but I didn't expect that he's still alive. You sound like you're from that era too? Senior Yang Taizi couldn't help squinting at him, but didn't say anything. Although he had a ruddy face and white hair, in fact, Senior Yang Taizi wasn't a senior at all in the Taoist Association. He was even a junior. Fanxing, go and check the strength of this Taoist Solitary Cloud, Mr. Song suddenly said at this time. Gong Fanxing was stunned. She didn't expect that his honor would take action so soon. Would it expose their existence too early? There's no need to be afraid in the battle of the world, Mr. Song said indifferently. The momentum of fighting for the world should be accumulated from the beginning until it becomes invincible. Yes, sir. Gong Fanxing nodded. However, she didn't go up immediately, because Taoist Lone Cloud was going up as a challenger, so she had to wait until Lone Cloud won a battle before she could go up. However, this might cause suspicion of targeting the hermit of Jiayin Mountain. Would Jiayin Mountain feel like they were bullied by others? Finally, the head of the hermit of Jiayin Mountain had chosen his opponent. Just when everyone thought that this hermit would challenge the Prince of Undersea City to wash away his shame, Taoist Solitary Cloud said slowly, 100 Calamity Taoist, don't you want to come down and test your Taoist skills with me? This hermit of the peninsula wanted to challenge the head of Kelowna Taoist. 100 Calamity Taoist. This time, the Tao sects were very fragmented. Basically, with the tacit consent of the authorities, they were almost shamelessly divided into various sections. Of course, other supernatural groups also did the same thing, but they mostly did it in the name of individuals. The concept of sects mostly existed in the countries in the east of the world. If the 100 Tribulations Taoist accepted the challenge, he would only represent Kunlun, not the entire Taoist sect of the Divine Land, even though the Fire Cloud Evil God had given the 100 Tribulations Taoist a bead from the very beginning. President Solitary Cloud is overconfident. You don't need to do it, let me fight for you. A cold-looking Taoist said indifferently. His momentum was rising constantly, which made people feel moved. 100 Calamity Taoist said with a smile. Solitary Cloud called me by name. You want to fight for me? Do you think this old man can't move, or do you look down on Solitary Cloud? The Taoist sects in the world are a family, so there's no need to fight. Calm down. 100 Calamity, you're the face of Kelowna Taoist sect. You want to fight anyone who wants to challenge you? Where is the dignity of our Kelowna Taoist sect? At this moment, another voice sounded. However, it was a young man who looked no more than 16 or 17 years old. Miraculously, this young man was floating in the air, without a speck of dust on his body. The spiritual chi around him was flowing like a mountain stream, endless but strangely pure. There was even a kind of ethereal and otherworldly aura. On the first day of the meeting of the Supernatural Summit in Kelowna Taoist sect, all the seniors who lived in seclusion on the land of Kelowna came out to pass the heavenly tribulations. Most of the reclusive seniors had perished under the terrifying heavenly tribulation, but there were still a few senior experts who had successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation. This mystical young man was one of the Tao sect seniors who had successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation. He was also a sword immortal who came from an ancient sect, Cheonghua sect. Cheonghua sect belonged to Kunlun since ancient times, and was one of the 8 great sects of ancient Kunlun. 100 Calamity Taoist might be older, but this young man's seniority was higher than his. 100 Calamity Taoist wasn't that kind of person with outstanding talent. He was just good at enduring. Generation after generation of heaven's favorites died, or if he survived, he would have no choice but to become the number 1 in the Taoist sect. However, he didn't know who was stronger, compared to the 100 Tribulations sect leader, of the several secluded seniors who had successfully passed their tribulations. Martial Uncle Lu, you must be joking. The 100 Tribulations Taoist bowed slightly to the mystical young man and said, "The reputation of Taoism is never based on one person." The 100 Tribulations Taoist was also chosen by many people because of a chance encounter. This battle doesn't represent Kelowna Taoist sect. It's just a test between 100 Calamity and Solitary Cloud. 100 Calamity had some connection with him in the past, and now it's a good time to cut off this connection. Martial Uncle, please don't blame me. It's up to you. The miraculous young man closed his eyes. The pressure in everyone's hearts was suddenly relieved. The heavenly path was broken, and no one knew how powerful these seniors who survived the last heavenly tribulation were, let alone a legendary sword immortal like Martial Uncle Lu. It was said that the Cheonghua faction worshipped the goddess of the 9 heavens, the most authentic goddess of the great Tao, with countless mystical skills and secret skills. Kelowna, in the era before Kelowna Shinryu, was the era of these great Tao. Witch sect, dragon sect, phoenix sect, god sect and devil sect. For the current Taoist sect, they were too far away. So far away that it was like the difference between an ordinary mortal and a land immortal who had survived the last heavenly tribulation. That's right, people like this miraculous young man, who had survived the last heavenly tribulation but couldn't leave because the heavenly path was broken, or stayed because of other reasons, were called land immortals. Immortals who walked in the mortal world. After 100 Calamity Taoists sang a call, a small cloud of mist rose up and slowly landed on the martial arts platform. Taoist Solitary Cloud, how have you been? 100 Calamity. At the corner of the stand, Mr. Song's eyes lit up, and then he smiled. This Taoist is really patient, I can see him in any era. Senior Yang Taizi squinted his eyes again. Who the hell are you? Wolfgang didn't know much about the internal affairs of Kelowna because of the location. Now, the people who had survived the last heavenly tribulation in Kelowna happened after the summit meeting. Before Wolfgang went out for the mission, he only remembered Shinryu, Fire Cloud Evil God and Xianyuan Palace in Kelowna. But now, it seemed that new people with great potential were emerging in this magical land of Kelowna because of the spiritual chi. This Kelowna in subworld number 003 is really strange. There are also other subworlds in Kelowna, but there are never so many top experts. What's so strange about it? Wolfgang couldn't help murmuring in his heart. Senior Yang Taizi was more gossipy at this moment, so he asked tentatively, Mr. Song, do you know 100 Calamity? Mr. Song said indifferently, we've met several times, but I don't have the fate of immortals, so I can't enter Taoism's eyes. He really knew 100 Calamity? Senior Yang Taizi's heart skipped a beat. He didn't doubt Mr. Song's words at all, but he was more curious about his identity. Yang Taizi thought for a while. Mr. Song, do you think 100 Calamity can win this battle against Taoist Solitary Cloud? Mr. Song glanced at this useless head of Huanjin sect, saying coldly, do you think 100 Calamity is a guy who is content with the status quo, not thinking about making progress and is afraid of death because he didn't go through the last heavenly tribulation? I didn't mean that. Yang Taizi was shocked at this moment. Mr. Song's eyes were too frightening. That was the sharpness of a dragon or phoenix among men, the top one should have. Mr. Song suddenly chuckled. Do you know why 100 Calamity didn't die and lived till now? Logically speaking, a guy like him should have used up his lifespan long ago. But he's still alive. Don't you find it strange? It's said that there's a fairyland in Kunlun, where there are countless treasures. Yang Taizi thought for a while. Maybe there's a miraculous medicine that can prolong one's life. There's no fairyland in Kunlun, only a bare grave. However, Mr. Song sneered and said, the reason why Bai Jie was able to survive until now and kill so many geniuses was only because this guy was lucky and drank the blood of the undying phoenix when he was young. Undying phoenix? Phoenix blood? Yang Taizi couldn't help exclaiming, 100 Calamity has become immortal? This was a secret, an unprecedented secret of Kelowna Taoism. Immortal? Mr. Song said disdainfully, no one can live forever. Even the so-called undying phoenix will die one day. Besides, it's just the blood of the undying phoenix. At most, it can only make people live forever. It won't make them immortal. So many years had passed. What phoenix blood? It had already endured 100 tribulations and should have exhausted its lifespan. If this guy doesn't go through the tribulation, he won't live for long. These things were too far away. Yang Taizi only thought that if he lived like 100 Calamity, an evergreen tree of Taoism, he should have lived long enough, right? At this moment, a horrifying aura suddenly rose from the martial arts platform. This horrifying aura even made Yang Taizi see Mr. Song's expression change. And this horrifying aura came from the head of the hermits in Jia Yen Mountain, Taoist solitary cloud. What's wrong with this guy? Why did his aura suddenly soar dozens of times? Fire Cloud Evil God couldn't help standing up. Did this guy also take that drug? Next to him, the true dragon of the divine land frowned. Then, his eyes swept back and forth among the 8 grandstands, as if he was looking for something. F***CK. I can refine drugs too. Chichi Kamaya's medical skills should have been squeezed dry by me. Why can't I refine this drug without side effects? Tut. All of a sudden, the true dragon of the divine land's eyes darted around as if he had thought of something. Then, he focused his gaze and found Mo Xiaofei, who was hiding in the corner of one of the 8 grandstands. At this moment, Mo Xiaofei was hiding in the team of Greedy Wolf Tribe. Of course, he just came with the team to watch the fight and cheer for Zhuifeng. He had never thought of joining the fight. At this moment, Mo Xiaofei, who was watching the fight, suddenly heard Shinryu of Kelowna's voice in his ear. Master? Don't talk. Listen to me. Nod your head if you understand. Do you understand? Nod. Find a chance to come to the Qian stand to find me. Don't wait, come now. Mo Xiaofei still nodded. He thought, did Master take the wrong medicine today? Why does he feel so fiery? Menopause? Brother, where are you going? This is wonderful. I need to go to the toilet. Brother! Your kidney is not good.